It's been a long time since I read a story with such captivating artwork. The golden waves of wheat and the romantic love story between the characters are sure to be amazing. The story begins in Mahidor, in the western part of the continent. The past few years have been incredibly difficult. Ever since Emperor Cartion took the throne, the empire began expanding like crazy, and all the surrounding smaller nations got dragged into war. Back then, Elric was just a mercenary, living a life constantly on the edge of death. But who would have thought he was hiding a massive secret? Let's rewind. Elric's father is sitting behind his desk and calmly drops a bomb. It's time for you to get married. Elric is completely stunned. What? His father has no intention of discussing it. He just lists off the other family's assets. He mentions that the daughter of Baron Winbin is only 16 years old this year, and she is supposedly very beautiful. His father sits there, smugly praising the arrangement, noting that the girl is quiet, loves gardening, and is a perfect match for him. Elric's head is spinning. He doesn't even know what this girl looks like. How could a marriage just be decided like this? The kicker is, Elric is only 14 years old. Anyone would be confused. He stands in the hallway for a long time, unable to process it. His father's words feel like a harsh sentence. Being forced into an arranged marriage is bad enough, but something else really bothers him. The whole setup makes no sense. Why would the daughter of a high-ranking noble family marry into a merchant family like theirs? Before Elric can wrap his head around it, the female lead arrives. Tyria speaks politely. "It is a pleasure to meet you." Elric looks up and is completely mesmerized. Tyria curtsies gracefully. "I am Tyria Winbin." She is genuinely beautiful. With her long blonde hair and light green eyes, she gives off an incredibly pure vibe, like a fresh blade of grass. She doesn't look like an ordinary baron's daughter. She looks like she stepped right out of a painting. Every detail about her is perfectly refined. If he had to describe her, she looks like a noble lady full of secrets, so elegant that you wouldn't dare speak too loudly around her. Thankfully, Elric hasn't objected to the marriage yet. His father pats him on the back. "Elric, please introduce yourself." Elric finally snaps out of it and hurriedly bows. "Hello, it is very nice to meet you." Even though his mind is a mess, he knows perfectly well that from this moment on, he will spend the rest of his life with the woman standing in front of him. They are completely tied to one another. Time flies, and before they know it, the two are standing at the altar. The wedding is beautifully put together. Looking back now, the feeling was hard to describe. To him, she was what people call a first love. Looking at Tyria, Elric is completely lost in the moment. When they exchange rings, she looks so beautiful that he feels an overwhelming wave of happiness. He tries hard not to smile too foolishly. He deeply wants to cherish this beautiful person. He is so happy that he doesn't realize how much he is actually hurting her. But how could he have known back then? When the excitement of the wedding fades, Elric sits there looking at the ring on his finger. He asks a question his father never answered. Why would such an elegant and noble woman actually become his wife? No matter how he looks at it, something is wrong. Why would a true noble lady marry someone from a merchant background like him? He turns his questions to the maid, Rhonda. She hesitates, clearly unsure if she should speak. Elric is losing his patience. He looks her straight in the eye and says, "Rhonda, you definitely know the truth. Tell me what is going on." Rhonda stays silent for a long time before finally spilling the truth. "Young master, this is actually a political marriage." The moment the words leave her mouth, Elric freezes. It turns out that the prestigious baron's family has been an empty shell for a long time, carrying a massive amount of debt. Just surviving day-to-day was a struggle. As a result, Elric's father offered a deal. If they married their daughter off to his family, he would pay off all their debts and provide ongoing financial support. Rhonda reveals the final piece of the puzzle. As long as this marriage is finalized, the Portmer family can transition from mere merchants to actual nobility. Elric finally understands everything. Trembling, he asks, "Are you saying Tyria was sold to our family?" Rhonda says nothing, but her silence is all the answer he needs. Elric is completely devastated. The happiness he thought he had found was actually just a dirty transaction. What on earth did his father do? He can't sit still anymore. He wants to explain and apologize, even if it's the worst excuse in the world. How is he supposed to face her? He pushes the door open just a crack, and all he hears is the sound of miserable crying. Panic sets in. Seeing the scene inside, Elric is completely paralyzed. Tyria is huddled in the corner, her eyes swollen from crying. Seeing her like this, he finally realizes that this marriage holds absolutely no happiness for her. It's a nightmare. In that moment, he makes a decision. This marriage has to be canceled. He can't just stand by and watch Tyria be trapped in this cold house. He storms right to his father's room, throwing the door open without even knocking. "Father, cancel this marriage!" He demands to know the truth. Did Tyria really marry him just to save her family? This isn't a marriage, this is literally buying a person. He begs his father to let the girl go. But his father completely dismisses him. He cuts Elric off, telling him to stop acting like a child. Now that he is a noble, he needs to act like one. His father's attitude is a harsh wake-up call for Elric. He has never had a voice in this family. After all, he grew up carrying a heavy sense of guilt. From the day he was born, he was the target of his father's resentment. He isn't treated like a young master. He is just a tool to help the family climb the social ladder. In his father's eyes, Elric isn't a living person, but a puppet. As long as he brings in profits, no one cares about his feelings. That is his only value. If his only purpose is to be a tool, he can't live like this anymore. Elric makes up his mind. He has to leave, and he has to do it cleanly. For the sake of the girl who was sold to them, he must completely disappear from this house. Since their family name only represents dirty deals, he would rather not have it. He decides to walk away from the Portmer family. On a night with heavy rain, carrying only a simple bag of clothes and a sword, he leaves to forge his own path. However, one question still bothers him. Why was Tyria crying so hard? Was it because she was sold like merchandise, or because she didn't want to leave her parents? Surely it wasn't because she hated him, right? Whatever, he thinks. What's the point of worrying about it now? In the pouring rain, a burly man approaches him and asks if he wants to be a mercenary. Elric says yes without hesitation. "From now on, my name is Kashar." He completely throws away the name Elric Portmer. Right now, he is just a nobody trying to survive. 10 years pass in the blink of an eye. The young master who ran away from home has become Kasha, a god of war. He swings his heavy sword with everything he has, wandering from battlefield to battlefield, hoping to trade this madness for a place to finally belong. Does anyone know the secret of the boy named Elric? He plans to keep it hidden forever. Elric stands alone with his heavy sword, facing down an army of thousands. He is entirely prepared to take on a whole battalion by himself. The enemy soldiers have no intention of letting him go. Shield bearers block the path, and a row of muskets is aimed right at him. If he takes a single step forward, he'll be shot full of holes. Facing this wall of weapons, Elric doesn't even flinch. He grips his sword tightly. The blade tears through the air, drawing a fiery red arc. When he finally stops, his face is smeared with the blood of his enemies, but he looks incredibly calm. It's as if that brutal battle was just a minor chore. After this massive battle, Elric has to take some time off. Inside a noisy tavern, everyone is minding their own business. The bartender is busy working and casually says, "Welcome," without looking up when the door chimes. But the sound of these footsteps makes everyone in the room freeze. Elric, leaning on a cane, slowly walks in. The lively tavern instantly gets quiet. The people drinking nearby start whispering, "Isn't that the ghost sword? Shouldn't he be on the battlefield? Why is he back here?" People gossip behind his back. The arrogant bringer of death is now relying on a cane. Elric ignores the chatter and walks straight to the bar. The bartender looks up and is shocked. "Man, what happened to you? Is your leg injured?" Elric sits down, his tone as casual as if he were talking about someone else. "Isn't it normal to bring back a little souvenir from the battlefield?" The bartender sighs and goes back to work. Elric flips through a newspaper while waiting, thinking it will take some time to get used to this kind of civilian life. But before he finishes the thought, his grip tightens. He crushes the newspaper in his hand. The bartender is startled. "Sir, are you okay?" Elric says nothing. He stares at a face in the newspaper. It's a face he will never forget in his lifetime. He grips the paper tightly, his expression incredibly tense, and quickly leaves the tavern. Elric boards a long-distance train. The sunset dyes the train car red, but his mind isn't on the view outside. Who would have thought that hidden in a corner of that newspaper was the face of the man he hated to his core? It was his father, Hovin Portmer. When he ran away, he actually held on to a bit of a delusion. He thought that man would come looking for him. When he was 14 and walked out into the rain, he was young enough to believe that if he left, his father would feel a little heartbreak. Even though he was treated like a tool, and even though his mother's death was tied to that man, Elric still thought blood was thicker than water. Looking back now, the thought was ridiculously childish. Deep father-son bond? Tenderness? It was all wishful thinking. As the train speeds through the night, the last spark in his heart dies out. The man he hated for most of his life doesn't even have the right to be hated anymore. Elric feels useless. He actually had to use his father's death as an excuse to gather the courage to set foot on this land again. Aside from regret and a hollow feeling in his chest, it seems he hasn't brought anything back with him. With the screech of train wheels, this 10-year journey finally stops at Wiben, a place frozen in his memory for a decade. He is finally back. Looking out the window at the golden wheat fields, Elric is speechless. 10 years have passed, and nothing here has changed. The only person who changed is him. Leaning on his cane, he steps into the familiar sunset, walking down streets painted red by the autumn leaves. The place is so peaceful it feels alien to him. Watching people work at a leisurely pace brings out a torturous feeling of being caught between the familiar and the unknown. The deadly tension of the battlefield is nowhere to be found here. Watching children run by, he finally truly feels that he has returned home. Though his steps are slow, each one treads heavily on his memories. Elric looks around, and the boulder that has been weighing on his chest for 10 years finally drops. Even the wheat fields, the symbol of the Wiben territory, are exactly the same. Seeing these familiar fields brings back childhood memories. How innocent he was back then, running around with the village kids, playing hide-and-seek all day. Even when the maids scolded him for getting his clothes dirty, those were carefree days. But now, with every step forward, those images become sharper. So sharp it makes him uncomfortable. Reminiscing is ridiculous. He stops walking. Standing under the evening sky, a figure suddenly comes to mind. It's Tyria. He wonders how she has been all these years. She must be doing well. After all, she was so beautiful. The line of guys wanting to date her must have been out the door. Maybe she's already settled down with a new family. It makes sense. A whole decade has passed. Who would wait around here forever? But just as he's about to dismiss the thought, a voice calls out from a distance. "Lady Tyria!" Elric whips around. He sees a figure surrounded by maids. One maid runs up, yelling, "How can you do such heavy work yourself, my lady?" Tyria? 10 years haven't seen them together. She seems to have changed, yet somehow looks exactly the same. How is this possible? Why is she still here after 10 years? Tyria just looks at him quietly, not saying a word. She grips a stalk of wheat tightly in her hand. Elric's mind is flooded with questions. Why didn't you leave? Why are you still here? Before he can even stumble through a reason, Tyria speaks clearly. Well, because I am your wife. Elric freezes, biting his jaw to hold back his emotions. I was such an idiot. He honestly thought that if he disappeared for 8 or 10 years, the marriage would just automatically be annulled. He was too naive. If getting out of this marriage was that easy, she wouldn't have been sold to him like a piece of merchandise in the first place. Looking at Tyria, Elric is filled with regret. Did his youthful impulsiveness really cost her the rest of her life? Only now does he clearly see what he's done. He thought leaving would free her, but instead, he practically shoved her into a cage with no way out. In the end, he couldn't even protect his wife in name only. His pathetic pride is long gone. He realizes he was just a cowardly, selfish person who ran away, leaving this woman to deal with the fallout. Looking at Tyria, he feels tortured inside. Over the years, he carried a sword and lived a brutal life, thinking his own loneliness was the hardest thing to bear. He never stopped to think about how the woman he left behind survived. During all those long years, Tyria had to look after an empty house by herself, staring blankly out the window. That kind of loneliness and helplessness is probably worse than taking a blade on the battlefield. Elric finally realizes he owes her a formal apology. But when the words reach his lips, he hesitates. Does a guy who ran away for 10 years even have the right to apologize? What if Tyria can't let go of her anger? What should he do then? Elric hesitates for a long time, unable to form a complete sentence. He pictures her gritting her teeth and screaming at him. But Tyria just looks back at him and says softly, "Aren't you coming? Let's head inside first." Then she turns and walks away. Her calmness makes Elric even more flustered. He quietly follows his wife inside. She says, "I'll call the butler, please wait a moment." Standing on the porch, he looks at how everything is exactly the same as it was. The familiar doors, the furniture, everything is the same. Only he has changed. It's been 10 years, but it's as if time forgot this place. Memories flood back in an instant. The familiarity makes him feel like he never left. Just as he's getting emotional, a voice comes from behind. A woman asks him who he is. Elric is caught off guard. It's Rhonda's voice, and she completely mistakes him for a stranger. She asks who he is looking for. Rhonda, it's been 10 years and you really haven't changed a bit. Elric smiles and asks, do you really not remember me? Rhonda freezes. She stares at him for a long time until the man in front of her finally matches the boy in her memory. She gasps, young master? She rushes forward, afraid he might be an illusion, asking repeatedly, is it really you, young Master Elric? Elric gently hugs the old woman. Long time no see, Rhonda. I'm home. Rhonda can't hold it back anymore. With a trembling voice, she says, it really is the young master. Looking at the grown man, she sighs, you've changed so much. I almost didn't dare recognize you. Elric smiles. Yeah, I really have changed a lot. It's normal not to recognize me. But right then, Elric's expression shifts. Tyria's words echo in his head. I am here because I am your wife. That sentence snaps him back to reality. He spent 10 years fighting on battlefields. Even Rhonda, who was like family, didn't recognize him at first glance. He can't understand it. How did Tyria know? After 10 years of being weathered by war, he has completely changed. How could she be so sure it was him? While Elric is drowning in questions, Tyria is standing by a window upstairs, watching the reunion below. She just watches quietly. No one knows what she is thinking. Elric seems to notice something and looks up at the window. Startled, Tyria quickly hides behind the curtains. She leans against the wall, her heart racing, and mutters about the scar on the back of his neck. It turns out she had a very clear view of him from upstairs. That scar, that brown hair, he really hasn't changed a bit to her. Elric settles back into the house and takes a bath to wash off the fatigue. The whole situation is just too weird. How on earth did Tyria recognize him in an instant? After getting out of the bath, he is about to get dressed when he steps out of the room and bumps into the one person he least wants to see right now. Who knew Tyria would be right there? Tyria is startled. She quickly covers her eyes and apologizes profusely. She is literally on the verge of tears. Bumping into him like this is embarrassing enough, but now she feels overwhelmed. Seeing her react this way, Elric completely forgets that he isn't fully dressed. He rushes to comfort her, telling her it's okay and not to cry. He reaches out to wipe away her tears. But to anyone else walking by, this looks completely inappropriate. And right at that crucial moment, a piercing scream tears through the house. The maid Marie drops her basket in shock. She turns and runs for her life to get help, screaming at the top of her lungs, "Something terrible is happening to the madam!" The sheer volume of her scream tells Elric he is in massive trouble. From the maid's perspective, the scene was impossible to explain. Caught in that position, he couldn't clear his name even if he tried. Tyria whispers, "Marie." Elric tries to salvage the situation, hastily explaining, "You came at the right time. The madam almost tripped. I was just helping her up." The 5th Legion of the Kayor Kingdom is on the defensive front line, thinking they can use a shield formation to hold off the enemy. But the leader of the raid turns out to be an elite from the Imperial Army, LeBron. The moment he shows up, the dynamic of the battle changes. This isn't a clash, it's a one-sided slaughter. Reblon doesn't even take his opponents seriously, charging straight into the crowd alone. The border guards are in total chaos. Their neat formation is instantly ripped open. The defense collapses and soldiers scream as they retreat. Running away is the only way to survive, but one guy refuses to back down. Elric, carrying his sword, walks straight against the fleeing crowd. The enemies are stunned, assuming he's some reckless mercenary with a death wish. The lead enemy soldier smirks, thinking Elric is basically a free kill walking right up to him, and aims for his heart. But what happens? Before the enemy's blade even touches him, the situation completely flips. They messed with the wrong guy. Elric doesn't even blink. With a casual swing of his sword, he crushes the enemy's arrogance. One move and the fight is decided. The cold thud of his sword hitting the ground strikes fear into the remaining enemies. Not a single one dares to move. Elric steps on one of them and coldly announces his name. "I am Kashar, a mercenary of the Chivor Kingdom." He looks around provocatively. "Whoever isn't afraid of dying, come at me." Suddenly, Elric realizes something is wrong. A projectile is flying toward him at top speed. Reacting instantly, he throws up a magic shield. But the red streak of light is ridiculously fast. It pierces right through his shield like paper. The injury is severe. Elric drops to his knees, unable to stand. Who is taking cheap shots? Looking up at the hillside, he sees two weirdly dressed guys staring his way. Their outfits and the rifles in their hands make it clear they aren't normal soldiers. The whole situation is a mess. Back to the present. Just a moment ago, he was reliving a life-or-death moment on the battlefield. When he opens his eyes, his surroundings have changed. Elric tightly grips a short dagger in his hand. The feeling of being pierced just now was too real. So real he thought he had actually died. But once his eyes focus on the room's decor, he finally confirms he is really home. Before he can even breathe a sigh of relief, a knock on the door nearly makes him jump out of his skin. Who is looking for me at this hour? Rhonda's voice calls from outside, asking if he is awake. Elric hasn't fully snapped out of his combat mindset yet. He still has a death grip on the dagger. He doesn't answer right away. After all, going from fighting for his life to waking up as a spoiled young master is enough to leave anyone disoriented. Rhonda opens the door and walks in. The service here is incredibly attentive. The moment he decides to wash his face with cold water, a basin is immediately brought over. Looking at himself in the mirror and feeling the texture of the high-end clothes, the contrast between this peaceful life and the hellish battlefield feels like two entirely different worlds. Staring at his reflection, Elric feels like it isn't real. A peaceful day like this is too much of a luxury for him. He tries to force a smile, but it looks incredibly stiff. After years of fighting, he has forgotten how to live like a normal person. Rhonda sees him getting ready and invites him to breakfast. But before he takes 2 steps, she notices something is wrong. Why are you limping? Elric laughs it off, claiming he accidentally tumbled down a slope and hurt himself. It's an excuse that would only fool someone who doesn't know better, but he absolutely cannot tell her the truth. Rhonda grumbles as she leads the way, scolding him for causing trouble yesterday and still not sitting still today. Elric just smiles awkwardly. Yesterday was a total misunderstanding. But as soon as the dining room doors open, the person he offended is standing right there. Tyria smiles and asks if he slept well. That question instantly brings back the memories of yesterday. Who could have predicted that disaster? Elric stands completely frozen, unable to utter a single word. Marie's scream of "pervert" is practically etched into his tombstone. Rhonda is quick on her feet and casually smacks Marie on the head. Keep quiet. Rhonda drags the maid out, making sure to leave the two of them alone. Great, now it's just the 2 main characters left in the room. Elric clears his throat awkwardly, forcing himself to say hello and mentioning that he slept very well. He's the only one who believes his own bad acting. To quickly move past the topic, he casually asks about the new maid. Tyria answers naturally, saying her name is Marie. But before he can breathe easy, Tyria circles back to the incident. If he's still bothered by the word pervert, he probably won't have an appetite for breakfast. Elric just wants to turn the page. Seeing Tyria about to speak again, he quickly waves his hands, insisting he's totally fine and doesn't mind at all. Gripping his cane, he explains he only asked about Marie because he hadn't met her before. Tyria doesn't press the issue and just gives a soft Finally, they can start eating. But the silence doesn't last long. Elric puts his fork down and suddenly brings up yesterday's incident again. Tyria blushes immediately. She quickly cuts in, saying the past is in the past and telling him not to dwell on it. Eating is the most important thing right now. However, Tyria isn't actually thinking about the embarrassing run-in. Her mind is full of what she really saw yesterday. Elric's body covered in a dense network of scars. Old scars overlapping with new wounds. Seeing the man sitting in front of her acting like nothing happened makes her chest tighten. How did he even survive taking injuries like that? Breakfast is destined to be a dull affair. Both are lost in their own thoughts and don't say another word. Elric regrets bringing it up at all. The suffocating silence is driving him crazy. To escape it, he starts eating like a madman, his fork moving so fast it's basically a blur. It's like the food on his plate is an enemy, not breakfast. The moment he finishes, before he's even done chewing, Elric stands up and abruptly excuses himself. It looks exactly like he's running away. Tyria looks at his empty seat and softly replies, wishing him a good day, but the heavy feeling in her chest remains. Once Elric leaves the dining room, the noise of the house hits him. The new day has finally begun in this bizarre atmosphere. News in this mansion travels faster than the wind. Rhonda takes him around to meet the household staff. They are all pretty enthusiastic. After all, the young master hasn't shown his face in 10 years. A guy runs up grinning and asks if he touched the madam yesterday. Just as these big guys are getting riled up, Marie steps in. The look she gives him is pure disgust, like she's looking at trash. Marie doesn't care that he's the young master or the lord of the house. She scolds the men directly. In her view, disappearing for 10 years and coming back just to do something so indecent is completely unacceptable. Even when another servant tries to smooth things over, Marie refuses to calm down. Then the old butler speaks up, and his words leave Marie speechless. In the butler's eyes, Elric's behavior wasn't inappropriate at all. This is a noble's duty, to continue the family bloodline. It's a masterclass in twisting the narrative. The more the butler speaks, the more excited he gets, practically painting Elric as the ultimate role model for nobility and a true man. Marie fumes on the sidelines. True man? He's clearly a perverted warmonger. Is anyone in this house normal? The old butler changes the subject to the most pressing issue. Now that everyone is thinking about the next generation, do you plan to stay permanently? Elric just forces a smile. He can't answer that because he hasn't figured out his future yet. He grips his cane tightly. Can I really stay here? Even though his knee is injured and he could hide out here for a while, Elric knows he has no idea how to actually act like a lord and run the estate. He doesn't want to get tangled up in it right now. He makes up a quick excuse, saying they can discuss it later, planning to make a swift exit. The old butler looks satisfied enough. Just having him back is a win. Marie glares at him, frustrated but unable to do anything about the young master. Elric doesn't want to stick around, so he orders the butler to prep a carriage. He needs to go out for some fresh air and get away from all this drama. The carriage rattles out of the estate, passing through the golden wheat fields. It's a beautiful view, but his mind is a mess. As the carriage pulls away, Tyria stands at the edge of the field, watching it disappear, her eyes full of complicated emotions. The carriage bumps along, finally escaping the chaos of the mansion. But Elric isn't just going out for a joyride. There is somewhere he needs to be. The carriage stops on a desolate hillside. He hasn't dared to return to this place for 10 years. Elric looks at the tombstone in front of him and mutters, "Long time no see, father?" He speaks to the grave. "I used to hate you so much." But who would have thought our reunion after 10 years would be in front of a tombstone? Now, no matter how much I have to say, I can only talk to a cold piece of stone. Hovan Portman, the name once belonged to a notoriously ruthless man. He single-handedly turned a small merchant group into one of the most powerful guilds in the city. But the price was making countless enemies, and his heart was cold to the bone. Elric looks at the grave and asks, "Did you ever smile at me, even once? Did you ever say a single warm word to me? If you were going to play the villain your whole life, you should have at least lived longer. Now look at this. I don't even get the chance to settle the score." Elric finally lets go of the tension in his chest. "I don't hate you like I used to. You're gone now. It's time for some truths to come out." He calls the butler over. "How did my father die?" The butler replies that it was a heart attack. To stop outsiders from laughing at them, the old man kept it a secret from everyone. Only the doctor and the butler knew until the moment he passed. In his final days, he poured all his energy into liquidating his assets and shutting down the business. Hearing this, Elric laughs. "You was a weird guy. What was so great about that cold-blooded man that made you so loyal to him?" The butler answers honestly, "For the money, of course. What else would I be after?" But then the butler notices something odd. "Young master, aren't you going to ask about the liquidated assets I just mentioned? And the inheritance the master left behind?" It turns out that before he died, the old man frantically liquidated the business, selling off everything he could for cash. The butler lays his cards on the table. "The master didn't keep a single penny. He left it all to you." The truth is finally out. The man who had been cold-blooded his entire life used his final days to secure an out for his son. In the carriage on the way back, Elric asks, "Did my father not even leave a will?" The butler shakes his head. The master's personality wasn't exactly the type to write a will. He only left instructions on how to divide the inheritance. If you want to see it, I'll give it to you. But no one could guess what he was thinking. While he was doing all this, he was terrifyingly calm. The ride back is quiet. The butler gently reminds him, "You can take your time to think about the inheritance." But Elric isn't thinking about the money at all. He suddenly realizes something was wrong from the start, especially regarding Tyria. Looking back, the signs were all there. He asks the butler, "Why is she still in the mansion? I was so ruthless back then. The engagement should have ended a long time ago." The butler sees things very clearly. At the end of the day, it was a political marriage. To put it bluntly, it was a business deal dressed up as a wedding. Elric asks if that's the only reason. The butler doesn't answer directly, but mentions something more important. The Portman family is now a hereditary barony. As long as you claim the inheritance, that title is yours. He makes it clear. That inheritance belongs to you, young master. It has absolutely nothing to do with the madam. When the carriage arrives back at the estate, Elric still feels uneasy. His father has been dead for a year. If it was about the money, Tyria should have grabbed the inheritance and run a long time ago. The butler sighs. This is entirely the madam's choice. If she wanted to leave, no one could stop her. Now Elric is even more confused. She chose to stay? Does anyone know what she actually wants? The butler says helplessly, "Lady Tyria rarely speaks. Even though she has been in this house all these years, I've barely exchanged a few words with her." To everyone else, Tyria gives off an intimidating noble aura that keeps people at a distance. Since the master wasn't here to say otherwise, as a mere butler, I naturally couldn't force her out. Hearing this, Elric thinks to himself that her personality sounds like a real headache, but the butler gently reminds him, "Young master, don't forget she is your wife." Elric finds this ridiculous. Tyria is practically a stranger to him. They've interacted exactly once. The title of husband and wife is basically a technicality. The butler remains calm. There's no such thing as a perfect marriage in this world. In reality, most start as strangers. The days ahead might be difficult. Now that you're back, there are things you'll have to face sooner or later. Every step won't be easy. As soon as he walks through the door, he bumps into that familiar yet strange figure. Tyria has clearly been waiting for a long time. They haven't seen each other in 10 years, and even though they are legally married, the atmosphere is incredibly awkward. Seeing her like this, he imagines her stomach must be in knots too. Tyria steps forward carrying a large bag. Dressed like this, she doesn't look like a high society lady at all. She speaks first. "You're back?" Elric is still lost in his thoughts. "Where did you just come from?" Tyria points to the carriage out back. "I was just at the wheat fields." Seeing her like this, she really treats this place as her own home. Looking at the busy woman in front of him, Elric is at a loss for words. The strange, delicate atmosphere makes him feel completely out of place. "Should we head inside first?" Tyria asks. "Let's go in." He agrees. Walking into the house after a 10-year absence, every step feels alien. He feels awkward and wants to find a topic to break the ice, but it's like his brain short-circuits. He can't force a single word out. He sneaks a glance at Tyria. She's dressed very simply, yet that noble elegance seems practically built into her DNA. It reminds him of 10 years ago. Was she like this back then? As the image in his memory overlaps with the woman in front of him, Elric gets flustered. Just as they step inside, Elric's leg gives out. He almost face-plants right there. Tyria is startled and quickly asks if he's okay. Elric catches his balance and awkwardly explains, "I walked a bit too much today, so my leg is a little tired." Internally, he's wondering how much of his embarrassing stumble she actually saw. Looking at the large bag in Tyria's hands, Elric feels pretty pathetic. He curses his uncooperative leg for preventing him from helping her carry it. Tyria doesn't mind, casually replying that she's been used to this kind of work for a long time. That sentence makes Elric feel even worse. Tyria remains calm, saying she is very used to the chores because she learned them bit by bit from the old lord. Hearing this, Elric immediately understands. That was exactly his father's style. The old man never knew how to rest. No matter how big the business got, he had to supervise everything himself to feel at peace. Even with the wheat fields, he insisted on patrolling them personally. But over time, the family business had essentially collapsed. The Portmer family is now entirely propped up by this single wheat field. Elric knows perfectly well that given his father's stubbornness, when the fields were the only thing left, he definitely dumped the entire workload onto Tyria alone. Thinking about this, Elric stops walking. He looks at Tyria and asks, "Right, when my father was still alive, how was he?" They stand in front of a portrait of Portmer. The man in the painting still looks imposing, but to Elric, this father has become a total stranger. Tyria answers lightly. She says she only learned how to manage the territory from his father, and she doesn't remember much about his personal affairs. Elric holds onto a sliver of hope and asks, "Did he ever happen to mention me?" Tyria doesn't even look up, her voice is flat. "No." The answer is blunt enough. Elric laughs at himself. Makes sense. A cold father and a quiet woman. Besides work, they really had nothing to talk about. Looking at Portmer's imposing portrait, Elric's last bit of hope completely shatters. Tyria doesn't plan to stick around, mentioning she still has work to do. Elric is confused. It's almost dark. Why is there still so much work? Tyria tells him she still has to go over some paperwork. Elric is genuinely stunned. Working in the fields all day and reviewing ledgers late into the night? Tyria doesn't think it's weird at all. She just says she'll see him at dinner. Watching her walk away, the guilt in Elric's chest surges uncontrollably. If he hadn't run away, all this back-breaking work would have been his responsibility. He lived freely outside for 10 years while letting a woman handle everything for him. What makes him feel worse is that Tyria hasn't complained once. If she had just yelled at him, he might feel better. But now he has to swallow this guilt entirely on his own. Just as he's about to leave, there's a loud crash outside. Marie tripped and dropped a wooden box she was carrying, spilling letters all over the floor. She panics, muttering that she doesn't know what to do. Elric leans on his cane and heads over to help. Marie sees his injured leg and frantically tries to stop him, but Elric waves her off. He picks up a letter and casually asks why there are so many. Marie answers honestly, saying they are all for the madam. For Tyria? Elric looks at the envelopes. The sheer number is ridiculous. Who sent these? Elric pulls one out at random, but when he reads the text, he freezes. The envelope clearly reads, "To my beloved daughter, Tyria," and the sender is Wibben. Elric reads the letter. It tells Tyria she has suffered enough and shouldn't wait for a man who is never coming back. It urges her to come home and start over. It turns out his father transferred all the family assets into Elric's name. But to Tyria, who dedicated 10 years of her life to the family, he didn't leave a single dime. Anyone would think this is incredibly unfair. Even if Tyria had taken everything and run, it would have been well-deserved compensation. Elric puts the letter down. He starts to wonder why Tyria stayed in this house at all. Was it for the inheritance? He can't wrap his head around it. If Tyria really wanted the wealth, she wouldn't have subjected herself to this kind of torture. If it was really about the money, she had plenty of chances to make a move over the past year. Why wait until now? He opens a desk drawer. Sure enough, the contents confirm his suspicions. The stack of letters was all sent within the last year, and their contents are shockingly consistent. They all discuss the assets transferred to Elric. It seems Tyria couldn't care less about it, while the people sending the letters are so desperate they're begging her for a reply. Elric finally understands. Tyria didn't stay all these years to scheme for the family fortune. She stayed to protect this home for him. Even knowing the true heir might never return, she carried the burden alone. She even kept it a secret from the servants. This means Tyria hid the truth so deeply. How did she survive this past year? Watching Tyria hustle outside the window, Elric feels terrible. Truthfully, even if she had taken all the money, he wouldn't have the right to say no. But she chose the hardest path. What kind of loyalty does it take to endure all this for a return that was never guaranteed? Tyria is looking in the mirror, carefully getting dressed and doing her makeup. Marie stands nearby, visibly thrilled. She squeals. The young master is finally taking the initiative. This is the first time he's asked to see you alone. Even though the bathroom incident was a bit much, Marie's head is full of what Butler Aldio said. If the madam can just quickly produce an heir, her position in the family will be rock solid. Hearing this, Tyria gets incredibly flustered. Marie is more excited than anyone, running over to grab the hem of Tyria's dress. Wiping away a fake tear, Marie says that even though the young master is a bit indecent, disappearing for 10 years without a word and pulling stunts as soon as he gets back, for the sake of the madam's future, they have to listen to Butler Aldio. Take this chance and seal the deal. She starts imagining what the baby will look like. The first one has to look like you, madam. If the second one looks like Elric, that's trouble. What if they grow up to be a runaway weirdo like him? Let's just have 3 and make sure they all look exactly like you. Tyria listens, half laughing and half crying. There's a knock on the door. The butler gently calls from outside, asking if Tyria is ready. Tyria replies, "I'm heading out for the appointment now." Walking down the long hallway, Tyria keeps wondering. After all, this is the first time Elric has proactively asked to meet her. What is so important? The butler pushes open the heavy doors and respectfully announces the madam's arrival. The formal vibe is dialed up to 11. Elric is sitting by the window. He says calmly, "Please come in." Tyria steps inside. Elric sets his teacup down. The atmosphere is suffocatingly heavy. The two sit across from each other, neither speaking first. Elric finally breaks the silence. He pulls out a letter, slides it across the table, and admits he opened it by accident. Even though it was an accident, it was still out of line. He looks straight at her and asks, "Can you explain what's in this letter?" Now it's Tyria's turn to be speechless. Her heart is in a panic. Her biggest fear is that Elric will misunderstand her and think she's the type of person who would use underhanded tricks to steal his inheritance. That would be a massive misunderstanding. Elric doesn't want to beat around the bush anymore. He points out that for the past year, she clearly knew about these letters but chose to ignore them. He demands an answer today. Since you didn't even know if I would ever come back, why did you endure it? Why guard this inheritance for me? He is blunt. My lady, you obviously could have taken all of this for yourself. To Elric, Tyria is basically a stranger. How could a stranger be so selfless? How could it not seem suspicious? Then he asks, "If you didn't want to see me here, why didn't you just go back to Wibben?" Hearing this, Tyria finally breaks her silence. She looks up, her voice absolutely unwavering. "Please call me Tyria Portmer." Her meaning couldn't be clearer. I am not a Wibben clinging to you. I am Lady Portmer. That's the end of the conversation for her. Tyria refuses to stay another second. She stands up, flatly excuses herself, says she has a lot of work to handle, and leaves. This time Elric is the one left sitting there. He watches her walk away and stays silent for a long time. Truthfully, Elric had been stuck on this point. He couldn't understand why. During all those unpredictable years when life and death hung in the balance, Tyria held on to the family assets. She could have had it all with the snap of her fingers. Just then, Tyria stops at the door. As if making up her mind, she softly says, I am your wife." Sitting alone in the study, Elric can't get Tyria's resolute expression out of his head. She said she is Lady Portmer, not some girl leeching off someone else. Those words are a massive wake-up call for him. It turns out that what kept Tyria going all these years was never some ordinary romantic feeling, nor was it greed for the family fortune. It was the duty and responsibility of a noble. She preserved everything simply to be worthy of the Portmer name. Looking at how Tyria is acting now, Elric is reminded of an old acquaintance, Elvis Graham. They first met on the battlefield. At the time, Elvis was the third son of a lord, and Elric was just a mercenary. Their relationship was strictly business. One paid, the other fought. They won the battle, and casualties were low, but it hardly felt like a victory. Elvis was completely ruined in that fight, destined to spend the rest of his life in a wheelchair, never able to hold a sword again. And the reason Elric chose to stay back then was exactly the same reason Tyria is staying now, out of a damn sense of duty. In Elric's memory, Elbers was always talking about responsibility. He said nobles are born to bear the weight of the world, and once you sit in that position, you have to be a role model for everyone. It was a brutal war for him, but to him, it was just a place to fulfill his duty. Even when he lost half his body, he accepted it as a matter of course. Elric was still young back then. Looking at Elbers in the wheelchair, he couldn't help but mock him. "Aren't you a bastard? You only have half noble blood, right?" Elbers didn't get mad. Instead, he laughed self-deprecatingly. "Since I only have half the bloodline, I only fulfilled half the responsibility. Losing half my body is only fair." After that, Elbers completely let go. He left the battlefield and spent the rest of his life partying as a playboy. A few years later, he got married. The flashback ends, bringing Elric back to reality. He is spinning a knife in his hand. When it comes to responsibility and duty, he understands perfectly. He probably won't be able to repay Tyria for what she sacrificed over the last 10 years in his lifetime. But that doesn't mean he can't do anything now. Those hungry wolves eyeing the family fortune will definitely keep sending letters to harass her. It's been a year since those letters started arriving, and the senders have only demanded answers from afar. They haven't dared to show up. It seems it's not that they don't want to come, but rather that they can't get in. And asking Tyria now would be useless. With her personality, she'll swallow any grievance on her own. Don't expect her to talk. If he can't get the truth from his family, he'll have to find another way. The carriage rides straight through, finally arriving at the so-called Wibben territory. Elric looks up. The place is built quite elegantly, maybe even a bit showy. If the other side likes hiding behind the scenes and playing dirty tricks, he plans to confront them head-on. After all, crashing the party is what he does best. Who would have thought that right at the boiling point he would show up? A man walks by complaining, "Talk about bad timing, it's like a ghost that won't go away." The woman next to him looks deeply disgusted. If he ran away in the first place, he should have disappeared forever. Showing up out of nowhere now means nothing good. She smirks, her meaning obvious. He's definitely here for the family inheritance. Facing this uninvited guest, the man doesn't know what to do. His biggest fear is that Elric is back to snatch the money. If he actually gets a cut, they lose out big time. The more the couple thinks about it, the angrier they get. The woman stays quiet, but her mind is racing with calculations. The man can't hold back his curses. That low-life piece of trash. All he cares about is money. He dragged Tyria down for 10 years, and we aren't done settling that score. Not to mention how much it costs to raise a daughter. Exactly, the woman chimes in. Think about how much effort we put into raising Tyria. The man grinds his teeth. And the inheritance Hoban left behind. That money has to be used to pay off all the old debts. The doors swing open. The man they've been cursing all day finally appears. Elric leans on his cane and strides right in. He speaks first. "I am Elric Portmer. Apologies for taking so long to come and pay my respects." The man sitting across from him sneers. 10 years is a very long time. Seeing you is harder than reaching the sky. I assume you had your reasons. As soon as Elric sits down, the man brings up the letters. He laughs coldly. "It's funny that you only notice the letters now. Since everything is out in the open, I won't beat around the bush." He claims that for 10 years, Tyria suffered alone, and as her father, he wrote those letters to get justice. He gets more worked up, saying Portman family finally became nobles, but Elric just walked away. "You're shameless." Eventually, the conversation turns to money. The man glares at Elric with absolute contempt. In his eyes, Elric is a crippled nobody with an unknown past, totally unfit to keep the Portmer fortune. He makes his demands clear. The money should be given to their family as compensation for the past 10 years. The woman hides half her face behind a folding fan, making snide remarks about Elric's incompetence and using Tyria as a human shield, claiming her daughter suffered too much. They talk in circles, but the reality is they just want to swallow the inheritance whole, dressing it up under the noble guise of doing it for everyone. Elric feels sick. These people preach morality and justice, but inside they're full of filthy schemes. His father is dead, Tyria is still young, and they see the money as up for grabs. They don't care if Tyria is living well or not. They just want to pocket the Portmer family assets. Elric really can't stand to listen anymore. What if he hadn't claimed the inheritance yet? Instead, he offers a slow apology, saying his wife is too busy to be here. Taking a step back to advance is a tactic that immediately ignites the powder keg across the table. The man explodes, slamming his hand on the table and yelling at Elric to stop trying to reason with him. To him, everything except the inheritance is garbage. He gets even more aggressive, actually turning it around on Elric. "You disappeared for 10 years, and now you come back demanding money? You're greedy." The act of playing the victim while actively robbing someone is pretty convincing. Hearing the word greedy, Elric can't help but laugh out loud. These people are trying to steal the money while actively pointing fingers at others. Since they've taken it this far, Elric drops the polite act. He glares at the man and asks, "If I insist on keeping this money today, what exactly are you going to do to me?" The man, who was so aggressive a second ago, is completely speechless. Elric doesn't let up, pressing him step by step. "You were yelling so loudly just a moment ago, weren't you?" The barrage of words leaves the man so stunned he doesn't know how to save face. All he can do is slam the table, point at Elric, and scream that he's an ungrateful bastard. Elric smirks. "You're right. It seems you finally see the reality." He wasn't on vacation for the past 10 years. He crawled out of piles of corpses. Getting angry and talking nonsense are the most useless things on a battlefield. As long as your sword is fast enough, right and wrong don't matter, because dead men don't argue. Elric stares the man down and advises him to shut his mouth. Emitting a killing intent straight from hell, Elric makes it so guys like him can't even stand it for a second. He makes it perfectly clear. If you want to keep receiving the money you do now, it's best you keep your mouth shut. The person who actually has the right to inherit this wealth is my wife. You two are just outsiders with zero authority, yet you're putting on this massive act. His father-in-law screams in the background, vowing he will never let Elric off the hook and threatening to storm the Portmer estate and tear him apart. Facing these empty threats, Elric doesn't even bother looking back. He just tosses over his shoulder, "Be my guest." Having won the confrontation, Elric rides the carriage back, but he isn't happy at all. He starts to reflect. How is my aggressive behavior just now any different from those greedy bastards? In Tyria's eyes, he's probably not a good person either. Thinking about how he taught them a lesson, he felt an overwhelming sense of justice, forcing them to drop their ridiculous greed. But now he starts to doubt it. Was he really standing up for Tyria? Or was he just addicted to the feeling, the superiority of trampling someone under his feet? His father used to tell him, "If you're being raised, you have to prove your worth." Elric suddenly realizes something. He's been out on his own for years, yet he ended up living exactly like the man he hated most, selfish and cold-blooded. The realization makes him sick. Before the carriage even stops, he can't hold it back anymore. The nausea surges from the pit of his stomach and he can't suppress it. He is overwhelmed with self-loathing, feeling like a completely rotten lost cause. Just as the emotion is about to swallow him whole, there's a noise nearby. Who would be in this desolate place? He looks up. In the distance, there's a familiar silhouette. It's Tyria. Elric softly calls her name. Looking at her slender back, the guilt weighs even heavier on him. How much humiliation has she suffered alone all these years? Especially being treated like that by her own parents. It's not something a normal person could endure. Thinking about this, Elric throws away whatever pride he has left. He sprints toward her like crazy through the wheat fields. Marie and the butler watch in shock. Is this the usually calm young master? Right now, he is drowning in self-blame. Whether it's his late father or himself, it seems everyone close to Tyria has only brought her pain. The moment Tyria turns around, Elric is right in front of her. He grabs her hands tightly, stripping away all his emotional armor. He relies entirely on her. This sudden move stuns Tyria. Elric has completely tossed his ego aside. He says softly, "I'm sorry. I left you to suffer alone for 10 years. I selfishly thought it was for your own good. Looking back, I was a massive jerk. All the pain you went through was because of me." Hearing this, Tyria is frozen. Her mind flashes back to when they were kids. Who knew Elric was quite the hero back then? Surrounded by monsters, he insisted on protecting Tyria behind him. After finally chasing the beasts away, he was panicked, checking to make sure she wasn't bitten. He wanted to look cool, but when he looked down, he realized he was in big trouble. He had a huge gash on his leg. Seeing him cry out in pain, Tyria felt a little awkward and told him to come closer. Maybe she had a trick up her sleeve? Young Elric's leg hurt like hell, but he kept talking tough. He introduced himself as Elric Portmer, emphasizing that he only saved her because this was his family's land, so she shouldn't think too much of it. Tyria completely ignored his boasting and quickly bandaged his wound. Now it was Elric's turn to be embarrassed. He mumbled a quick, "Thank you." Seeing how skilled she was, Elric was confused. She looked like a rich girl, so how was she so good at first aid? Tyria casually mentioned that her nanny used to take care of her like this. But her voice was so quiet Elric couldn't hear it, so he kept demanding she speak louder. Elric stared at Tyria for a long time, starting to get anxious. He told her that if she was always this timid, she'd never find a husband. Then the conversation took a wild turn. The kid actually had the nerve to say that once he became a royal knight, he might reluctantly take her as his bride. Seeing no reaction from her, Elric got flustered and started yelling to cover his embarrassment, claiming he only wanted to keep her around because she was good at medicine. He warned her not to get a big head just because she was pretty. Before leaving, he threw down one last cocky remark, claiming that in the future she'd be begging to marry him. Watching him run away, Tyria's heart was probably already doing flips. Back to the present. Looking at the boy from her memories, Tyria can't help but say his name. Elric Portmer. Who knew they would go in circles for so many years, only to end up reuniting like this? Is this what they call destiny? Before they know it, it's evening. The mansion is buzzing with activity. Rhonda is instructing Marie on preparing snacks for the masters of the house. Walking down the hallway, Rhonda is secretly worried. Elric's expression earlier didn't look good at all, and Tyria had been very upset. She wonders why Elric suddenly called Tyria over. When the door to the room opens, the atmosphere is incredibly tense. The two sit across from each other, neither speaking first. Finally, Tyria breaks the silence. She asks softly, "Didn't you say you had something important to discuss?" Elric hesitates. He finally looks up, saying some things need to be cleared up face to face. And then the man who is usually incredibly arrogant finally forces out an apology. Tyria can't believe her ears. Elric finally speaks his mind. It's about the wedding day 10 years ago when he ran off and left her alone. He admits he was too impulsive and never considered how much pain his decision would cause her. Finally, he asks cautiously, "Can you forgive me?" Tyria's reaction surprises everyone. She says softly, "My lord, you don't need to apologize." She explains that she never hated anyone, and choosing to stay was her own decision. Seeing how stubborn he is about it, she gives him an out. "Since the adults were always the ones making the decisions, I will accept your apology." Hearing this, Elric feels a massive weight lift off his shoulders. He smiles and says, "Thank you for forgiving me, Lady Tyria." The knot that had been tied for 10 years is finally half untangled. Noticing that Elric is still having trouble walking, Tyria can't help but ask, "Is your leg really okay?" Elric acts tough, insisting he's fine, and instead starts worrying that he's holding up her work. Tyria quickly tells him to stop, but there is something more important she wants to confirm. She hesitates, then asks, "Could you stop calling me lady? Could you change it to wife?" Elric didn't quite catch it. He leans in and asks, "What did you say you wanted to be called?" Right at that critical moment, the door bangs open. Marie bursts in carrying a tray of tea, yelling that it's tea time. The sudden noise startles Elric. He panics and loses his balance. His leg is already weak, and now he's totally off-center. He falls forward, landing straight in Tyria's lap. Marie stands frozen in the doorway. The butler beside her, however, is completely unfazed. He even jokes, "It looks like you two are busy expanding the family territory." Elric is in full panic mode. He scrambles to get up, yelling at the door, "It's not what you think!" The butler reaches out and covers Marie's eyes, saying very seriously, "Children shouldn't watch adult business." Marie is practically crying, screaming that the madam is about to be eaten alive. The butler gets a mischievous grin and promises they won't disturb them anymore. "We need to give these two some privacy." Then the door slams shut. Great. Now even if Elric had 100 mouths, he couldn't explain his way out of this one. When he wakes up, the sun is already high. Rhonda is by his bed right on time, asking if he's ready to get up. Elric is in a great mood, cheerfully saying good morning. Rhonda instantly spots something is up. He's acting a little too happy today. She leans in and teases, "Did something good happen last night? Like, maybe a little young master is on the way?" Elric immediately gets defensive. "You can't believe a word that old butler says." Rhonda just laughs harder. But then she drops her smile and gets serious, bringing up last night's incident. "You can't just brush this off," she tells him. Elric plays dumb, asking what she means. Rhonda is genuinely a bit angry now and lays it out. "It's been 10 years since you left that girl alone in this house." 10 years for a man and 10 years for a woman, is that really the same thing? Elric is speechless. He asks Rhonda what she wants him to do. Her request is simple. Just don't let Tyria suffer anymore. Looking at Tyria waking up alone in that big empty bed, she feels the air is much sweeter than usual today. She hugs a picture frame tightly to her chest. It's a photo of Elric when he was little. It seems last night's farce actually broke the ice between them. She asks the photo softly, "Did you sleep well last night?" Her tone is so gentle it could make you cry. Since this is a good start, shouldn't every morning from now on be like this? A new day starts, but breakfast is anything but peaceful. Last night's events are still lingering. Elric's mind is replaying those embarrassing moments on an endless loop. Tyria asks hesitantly, "Head of the house?" Elric jumps like he's been electrocuted. "Yes, go ahead." Tyria asks softly, "If you're free today, would you want to take a walk with me?" Elric is confused. "A walk?" Tyria quickly makes an excuse, saying she doesn't mean anything by it, just that the Harvest Festival is coming up, and she needs to inspect the territory. And since the Lord just got back, it's perfect timing, so... Elric realizes what she means. Right, the Harvest Festival. He nods and it's settled. Tyria finally breathes a sigh of relief. Since they're going out, they have to prepare. Soon the whole house is busy. Marie helps Tyria try on clothes, while Rhonda keeps a close eye on Elric so he doesn't mess anything up. After all, this is a rare chance for them to be alone. Rhonda leaves Marie to help the madam while she checks on Elric. She expects the Lord to have cleaned up his act by now, but when she opens his door, she is furious. Elric's outfit is atrocious. He actually thinks it's the most practical way to go out and work. Rhonda is not having it. You're going to inspect the territory, not lead an army into battle. Why are you dressed like a thug? Before Elric can react, Rhonda drags him back into his room. Now he's lost the right to dress himself. Rhonda pushes him into a chair. She is determined to make him look like a proper lord before she lets him step outside. She puts on her gloves and declares that from now on, she will handle all of his outfits. Elric fights for his life, claiming he can handle it himself, but she isn't listening. "This color is terrible. It looks so cheap," she says as she starts pulling his clothes off. Elric panics and begs her to stop, trying to negotiate. "Just pick the clothes and wait outside. It's not like my arms are broken." Rhonda finds this hilarious. "Are you saying you're shy? When you were a kid, you used to run around naked. Why aren't you that open now?" Elric's defenses are completely shattered. He refuses to admit it. Rhonda has no patience for his nonsense. "Take it off now. This is scarier than going to war." Elric has no way out. He thought it was just about changing clothes, but when he takes them off, Rhonda freezes. How is this the pampered body of a lord? His body is covered in scars that are hard to look at. Her voice changes. "Young master, what have you been through all these years?" Elric quickly pulls his clothes back on, explaining that this is exactly why he wanted to dress himself. Some things are too hard to explain. He apologizes to her and specifically asks her to keep it a secret from Tyria. "Please, I'm begging you." Rhonda is heartbroken. She wipes her tears and agrees. She promises that from now on, no one else will be allowed to help him dress. Elric finally breathes a sigh of relief. Dressed properly, Elric heads out. He asks casually, "Is the carriage ready?" The butler is super relieved. He was terrified when he saw Elric dressed like a bandit earlier, thinking it would scare the madam into fainting. Elric awkwardly replies that things almost went south, but luckily Rhonda was there to keep an eye on him. "Otherwise, I would have completely lost face today." Just as they're talking, the leading lady arrives. Surrounded by Rhonda and Marie, Tyria slowly steps out. Since it's her first time going out with the Lord, she put a lot of effort into her outfit. She asks expectantly, "Does this look good on me?" Elric is completely speechless. "You look beautiful." Seeing Tyria smile so brightly makes it hard for Rhonda to say anything. She decides to keep the secret of Elric's scars to herself for now. Elric finally gathers his wits and asks, "Shall we go?" The carriage moves out, and the territory patrol finally begins. They stop at the entrance to the market. It's been a long time since the place was this lively. Someone with a sharp eye recognizes him instantly. The runaway boy actually came back? The news spreads like wildfire. The market erupts. Even though some people still use his real name casually, Elric isn't arrogant at all. He actively asks people how they've been. As they walk to the grocery area, he runs into more old friends. More burly men recognize him. "Hey, isn't that our little Elric?" As he's talking, a loud voice cuts through the crowd. "Captain Elric, are you really back?" Elric pauses. The voice is super familiar. He turns around. It's Bart. Bart still has the same freckles he had as a kid. He's so excited his voice cracks. "The captain is actually back!" Without another word, they pull each other into a massive hug. This is the bond of growing up together. Bart quickly greets Elric's wife. Tyria politely asks how he is doing, and Bart beats his chest, saying he's doing great. He tells Elric to make sure he visits his shop for a drink after the festival. Elric smiles and agrees. Watching the couple walk away, Bart feels a bit emotional. Who would have thought those two would actually end up together? But looking at them now, they seem like a great match. Before they know it, it's dark. The carriage rocks gently as they pass the wheat fields, marking the end of the patrol. Inside the carriage, it's very quiet. Elric notices Tyria staring intently at a book. Looking closer, he realizes it's an encyclopedia of plants. It's so late. Why is she suddenly studying botany? Elric hesitates, then speaks up. He says he wants to help manage the territory in the future and asks if she can teach him the ropes. After all, Tyria has been carrying the whole load herself. Elric feels that since he's back, he needs to act like a lord. With her guidance, he's sure he can be useful. Hearing this, Tyria freezes. She quickly hides her face behind the book to conceal how happy she is. My lord is suddenly being so dependable. She rests the book on her lap and answers seriously. I can teach you, but I will be very strict, just like the old lord was with me. Elric smiles and nods. That's fine. But internally he's sweating. When my dad taught you, was he really that strict? Tyria looks proud. Strict, definitely. But I was never scolded. I'm a fast learner. Meanwhile, in a tavern on the border of Cheburo, the place is packed at midnight. Suddenly, the door is kicked open. An arrogant voice rings out, "Listen up, you stupid commoners!" The bartender, who is wiping a glass, freezes. Who is this psycho acting up on the border? A red-haired woman steps in. Based on her attitude, she's clearly a big deal. She stands at the door, her tone icy. I won't say it twice. Where is the ghost sword Kasha? Back at the estate, it's sunset. The study is overflowing with mountains of paperwork. Tyria is incredibly busy. Elric looks concerned, asking if she's always this swamped. Tyria answers without looking up. This is a special time. It's usually not this bad. She stops writing, as if suddenly remembering something, and asks hesitantly, My lord, do you think you should make an appearance this time? After all, you just got back. Shouldn't there be a celebration ceremony? Could you say a few words? Elric is taken aback. Say a few words? Like a public speech? His mind drifts back to the battlefield. Soldiers hyped up, screaming at the top of their lungs to make the enemy pay. That vibe always made him want to charge straight into the fight. But back then he was Kasha, living in battles. He had no interest in pre-war motivational speeches. He never wanted to be a leader, and he certainly didn't want to stand on a podium directing people. To him, the battlefield wasn't a place for glory. He fought like a madman because he had so much anger burning inside him and needed a place to let it out. He was like a rabid dog with bloodshot eyes, only caring about clearing whoever was in front of him. The mad Kasha could only fight desperately. How could he stand up and give a noble speech? Elric snaps back to reality. He quickly apologizes to Tyria, saying he got distracted. He offers a compromise. Tyria can give the speech, and he will stand by her side to support her. Tyria doesn't refuse. In fact, she thinks it's a great idea. As long as the Lord is by her side, that's enough for her. She will host the opening of the Harvest Festival. In the blink of an eye, the festival day arrives. Everyone in the territory gathers, and the atmosphere is electric. Tyria stands on a high platform looking out at the crowd. She loudly announces the official start of the Harvest Festival. Let everyone who worked hard all year enjoy this celebration. The crowd explodes with cheers. The noise is deafening. It's more exciting than New Year's Eve. Elric offers his hand and asks Tyria if she wants to go walk around. Tyria is overjoyed and takes his arm. The two step into the crowd together. The news that the Lord and Lady Tyria are walking around spreads quickly through the market. People are thrilled, crowding around to say hello. Enthusiastic locals hand them food and drinks, and soon Tyria's hands are full of local snacks, while Elric is handed a massive mug of malt beer. Seeing the smiles on everyone's faces, Elric finally relaxes. Feeling connected to these people is a million times warmer than fighting on a battlefield. While they're enjoying themselves, Tyria spots something amazing and tugs on Elric's arm, pointing into the distance. What could possibly shock someone as composed as Tyria? It turns out a royal jester is performing, and it's no ordinary trick. He's swallowing a sword. Tyria is amazed. It's rare to see palace-level skills out here on the border, but Elric's reaction is pretty flat. He even looks a bit distracted. Tyria can't help but ask, "Isn't it an amazing performance?" Elric hesitates. I've seen similar things before. But he doesn't tell her the truth. The people he saw doing it weren't doing it for show. They keep walking and pass a knife-throwing stall. The owner recognizes the Lord and yells out, urging him to show off his skills. The crowd gathers around, eager to see what the Lord can do. The target is an apple bobbing in the distance. Elric looks at the stall. He mentions it's been a long time since he touched a knife, but the kids nearby aren't having it. They keep cheering, demanding to see his skills. Tyria chimes in too. Since the kids are so excited, why not give it a try? With Tyria asking, Elric can't really say no. He bites the bullet and picks up the throwing knives. The owner is polite, saying if he hits 2 out of 3, he wins. But before the guy can even finish his sentence, Elric casually flicks his wrist. 3 knives fly out in one smooth motion, perfectly pinning the apple. The entire area goes dead silent. The owner's jaw hits the floor. How is that a casual try? That's the level of a professional assassin. Seeing the crowd's reaction, Elric's heart skips a beat. Crap. Should I have missed a few on purpose? He laughs awkwardly, claiming it was total beginner's luck and that he just tried really hard so he wouldn't embarrass himself. Tyria isn't buying his modesty. She praises him, saying that move was cooler than a real knight's. Elric acts humble, but internally he's sweating. The stall owner happily hands over a bundle of eggs, explaining it's a prize provided by the Chamber of Commerce. Elric waves it off, telling the owner to share the food with the kids. The kids are ecstatic, swarming around him and cheering, "Long live the Lord!" The owner just smiles and agrees. Tyria watches all this. She feels that the Elric standing in front of her is gentle right down to his core. Looking at the eggs in the kids' hands, Elric remembers his own childhood. He mentions that he once got lucky and found a golden egg in a batch, and it was the happiest moment of his childhood. Tyria smiles, and then she adds, "And then you traded that golden egg for a huge helmet that didn't even fit, running around with it wobbling on your head like a bucket." Seeing Tyria laughing, Elric suddenly realizes something. He never told her that story. How did Tyria know? Tyria panics, quickly making up an excuse that he was so notorious for being a troublemaker that the whole village knew about it. But what she's really thinking is that she absolutely cannot let Elric know she had been secretly watching him since they were kids. She even thought back then that she had to be his bride when they grew up. She's kept that secret for years. If she spilled it now, she'd never hear the end of it. With the awkwardness past, Elric offers his hand again, inviting Tyria to dinner in the square. Tyria happily takes it, and they head toward the center of the festival. Night falls quickly, and the square is packed. The energy is even higher than during the day. A man jumps onto the stage holding a torch, loudly announcing the start of the lighting ceremony. Elric shakes his head. The guy's flattery is way too much. But before he can react, the guy on stage changes the subject. He says that to pray for long-lasting peace in the territory before the fire is lit, Elric and Tyria must share a public kiss. The crowd erupts. The request is totally out of nowhere. Elric stammers, a kiss? Tyria's mind goes blank. Right here? Right now? Seeing them freeze, Bart decides to add fuel to the fire. "My lord, why don't you hurry up and kiss her?" Elric really wants to strangle him right now, but Bart doesn't let up. He gets the whole crowd chanting, "Do it, my lord!" Now the whole square is screaming in unison, "Kiss! Kiss!" The crowd is loving the drama, and the chanting gets louder. Elric realizes there is no escaping this. He leans close to Tyria's ear and whispers an apology. He wraps his arm around her waist, pulling her in. He has no choice. If he doesn't do something, these people probably won't leave until dawn. Since it's a festival, they might as well give the people what they want. Hearing this, Tyria smiles sweetly. She says that since the Lord has given the word, just posing isn't enough. Before Elric even knows what's happening, Tyria takes charge and kisses him right in front of everyone. The crowd loses their minds. Everyone cheers, wishing their relationship lasts forever. When the festival is over and Tyria is finally back in her room, she can't sleep. She tosses and turns, hugging her pillow. Her heart is an absolute mess. What got into me? I actually kissed the Lord in front of all those people. Now she's worried. Does Lord Elric think I'm some kind of weirdo? This night is more exhausting for Tyria than fighting a war. How is she supposed to look him in the eye tomorrow? But she isn't the only one spiraling. In the next room, Elric is wide awake. He stares blankly at the ceiling, entirely consumed by the memory of the kiss. His heart is beating so loud he swears the next room can hear it. Meanwhile, in the Whitewick territory of the Amin Kingdom, the vibe isn't nearly as relaxed. A man sits slowly sipping tea as Agnes opens the door and walks in. She addresses him as President White. The Imperial Army has broken through the Parban and Chivor border defenses, she reports. If this war kicks off, our good times are over. Who would have thought taking out Kashaw was the key? It turns out he was the pillar holding it all together. Without him, those forces are falling apart. Agnes is nervous. They have a lot of investments in Parban and Chivor. If the Imperial Army pushes further, their business is doomed. White remains totally unbothered. He notes that the war has dragged on for 7 years, and without Kashaw, those cities would have fallen ages ago. Now they are drowning in debt that they'll never pay back. With Kasha out of the picture, the fate of those 2 cities doesn't matter anymore. White has already planned for this, pulling out their core talent and assets before the collapse. They are ready to burn the bridge. Agnes sighs as she pours tea. This man is too cunning. White plays innocent, claiming he's just doing his duty as a noble. Agnes changes the subject. What about the guy named Kasha? Are we really just going to leave him alone? White smiles and corrects her. There is no Kasha in this world anymore. His name is Elric Portmer. Agnes is still worried. What if he recovers and comes after us? We should have just made him disappear completely from the start. White shakes his head. Did you not see what happened? Even when he was backed into a corner, he blocked a bullet with a magic shield. A normal person's leg would have been blown to pieces. You really think he'd be that easy to kill? White thinks killing Elric would be a waste. The current setup is perfect. Agnes doesn't get it. What is he plotting? White explains that guys like Elric are born to be top-tier mercenaries, but the biggest difference between him and a normal person is that Elric never fights just for his own benefit. That's rare for a mercenary. He's an anomaly. White has a plan. If Elric really is that kind of person, they just need to keep a tight grip on him. Now that Kasha is off the battlefield, the war will hit a stalemate. The nations running out of money will come begging them for cash. If they put Elric on the table as a bargaining chip, they can control the balance of the war. When that happens, the wealth they rake in will be astronomical. White is thrilled with his own genius and praises Agnes for being a smart girl. He goes to give her a big hug, but Agnes isn't having it and sharply pushes him away. She coldly warns him not to push his luck. She telling him that if he tries any funny business again, she won't let it slide. While those two plot in the shadows, preparations on the other side are almost done. Rhonda is busy fixing Elric's clothes, making sure nothing is too tight or uncomfortable. Elric is surprisingly chill, saying the outfit fits perfectly. Just then, Tyria opens the door at the worst possible time and catches Rhonda adjusting Elric's clothes. Tyria freezes for a long moment, then just turns and runs away without looking back. Rhonda stays calm and asks if they had a fight. After all, that passionate kiss at the festival is now the talk of the entire estate. Elric quickly blames Bart, claiming he was forced into it by the crowd. Rhonda isn't letting him off the hook that easily and demands to know the details, but Elric quickly changes the subject, asking who is visiting today. Rhonda tells him that trade envoys from the Western powers are arriving soon. Western powers? Elric asks. Rhonda explains that Wibbon's wheat is a hot commodity. Every year, countries try to secure a share. This year, even the Amin kingdom wants a piece of the pie. Things are getting complicated. Elric realizes that if someone in the delegation recognizes him, it will be a massive disaster. Rhonda adds that in previous years, Lady Tyria handled these events, but this time, the Lord has to step up himself. At the train station, the bell rings. Elric is waiting on the platform. The butler notices he looks a little nervous and quickly comforts him. Don't worry, young master. Just greet them like I taught you. Elric smiles. Thanks, Aldio. Even though he puts on a brave face, his heart is pounding. He keeps telling himself to stay calm. These people are just here to buy wheat. What are the odds someone who saw me on the battlefield would travel all the way out to this remote territory? He reflexively touches the hidden blade up his sleeve, his last resort. He hopes he won't have to use it today. A train rolls into the station, blowing white smoke. As the doors open, shiny leather shoes step onto the red carpet. Elric takes a deep breath and steps forward with the butler to greet them, projecting the authority of a lord. Welcome to our territory, envoys. The carriages are ready. Please follow me to the estate to rest. But before he even finishes speaking, one of the envoys, Polo, freezes. He stares at Elric, stammering, unable to form a coherent sentence. Could it be? Polo's reaction startles everyone around him. They think he's having stomach cramps from the trip. Elric is internally panicking. Of all the possibilities, I run into an old acquaintance here. If his true identity is exposed, all of Wibbon will suffer. He has to keep his cover. Polo looks like he's lost his mind, yelling about turning back. Elric smoothly intercepts, flashing his trademark polite smile, and introduces himself clearly. I am the Lord of Wibbon, Elric Portmer, head of the Portmer family. Polo is still reeling. He stares at the man in front of him. Is it really just a look-alike? Elric puts on a masterclass in acting. He leans in with a look of concern. Lord Polo, you don't look well. Seeing this friendly, approachable demeanor, the rock in Polo's chest finally drops. Makes sense. The ruthless Kasha would never act like this. Back then, Kasha had slapped him, showing Polo what absolute terror actually felt like. The scene at the station turns chaotic, with people whispering while Polo sits on the ground looking totally pathetic. But Polo is the type of guy who never learns his lesson. Once he catches his breath, he starts causing a scene. He points a finger at Elric and yells, calling him a low-class nobody with a shady background, furious that Elric would disrespect him like that. Elric doesn't panic and asks Polo, "Since you care so much about the rules, do you know the penalty for insulting me and my family?" Polo doubles down, claiming he comes from a prestigious family and has never seen a thug act like this. But before he can finish, Elric put off his glovers. "Since you refuse to listen to reason, I won't waste my breath," Elric says. He lays down the law. "Since we can't agree, let's follow the rules. A duel to defend family honor." Polo is completely triggered now and orders his guards to bring him a sword. Just as things are about to explode, a shout comes from the hall entrance. A man in a wheelchair rushes in. It's Elvis. He immediately tries to defuse the situation, apologizing to Polo and begging him to be the bigger person and let it go. But Polo is furious and refuses to back down. This isn't ending today. Seeing the situation spiraling, Elbers panics and yells at Elric, "Kasha, what are you doing? Apologize to Lord Polo right now." The moment that name drops, Polo freezes. Kasha? The man known as the Ghost Sword? That name is a taboo even on the battlefield, let alone for someone who actually has a grudge against him. Polo stares at Elric. It finally clicks. That terrifying monster from back then looks exactly like the man standing in front of him. Polo's attitude flips faster than a page in a book. Sweating profusely, he waves his hands, repeatedly claiming it was all a huge misunderstanding and begging Elric not to take it seriously. Elric plays along. Since the guy is backing down, there's no need to drag it out. He smiles and gestures for everyone to head to the carriages. The drama finally ends and night falls quickly. The carriage moves slowly under the sunset, arriving at the estate just before dark. The estate looks magnificent. Tyria is waiting at the entrance with the staff. She greets them perfectly, saying it is a great honor to host the envoys from the west. Seeing how exhausted Polo and the others look, Tyria suggests they rest first since they traveled so far. She asks Rhonda to show the delegation to their rooms. In the blink of an eye, it's late at night and the estate is quiet. But suddenly there's a knock on Polo's door. Polo just wants to sleep and wonders who could be bothering him at this hour. Room service? He grumbles that he doesn't need anything as he opens the door, but the moment he sees who it is, his sleepiness vanishes. The person standing there is Elric. He stayed up specifically to have a little heart-to-heart with Polo. Polo is terrified. He literally collapses onto the floor, scrambling backward to get away. Pointing a shaking finger at Elric, he screams, "I know it's you!" "You really are the demon Kasha?" Since the secret is out, Elric drops the act. Polo begs for mercy, crying, "Didn't I already apologize for what happened today?" Elric sits down calmly. "I don't recall accepting that apology." He adds, "Are you going to sit on the floor?" "I want to talk business, so find a seat." Faced with those terrifying red eyes, Polo is too scared to look directly at him, only daring to glance out of the corner of his eye. Elric cuts to the chase. "I met Lord Ugil before coming here." Polo trembles. "What did Ugil say?" "He made me an offer," Elric replies. He recounts his conversation. Ugil wanted to buy all of Wibben's wheat to distribute across the Western Amin Empire. Ugil had smugly flashed a gold coin, offering a small fee for the Portmer family. But with a catch, they could only sell exclusively to the Amin Empire. Ugil arrogantly told him to make a smart decision. Elric found Ugil's smugness disgusting. Hearing this, Polo jumps up and slams the table. "Those Amin bastards! I knew they were plotting behind our backs. Snakes." Elric leans in, looking amused. "So, shall we make a deal, Lord Polo?" Polo is hesitant. "Of course, but I'll buy the whole stock at the price Amin offered." "Lord Elric," Polo sweats, "I'm a logistics officer for the Empire, but I can't approve a price that high." Elric plays innocent. "But what are we going to do?" "I already accepted your apology. There's no bad blood between us anymore." This one-sided negotiation has Polo sweating bullets. He clasps his hands, pleading, "How about 60% of Amin's offer?" Elric goes cold. "A discount like that puts me in a tough spot. You know I have a family to feed." "What about 70%? The Empire will cover all packaging and transport costs." Elric stands up. "Under the terms we just discussed." He extends a hand to Polo's pale face. Do we have a deal? It's a great transaction, Lord Polo. The sweaty envoy sighs in defeat. You're the first person to ever squeeze a deal like this out of the Empire. He asks, why did you choose to work with me? Elric replies calmly, because you look weak. He adds, we might have gotten off to a rough start, but why not improve our relationship? They share a very awkward, forced laugh. Before leaving, Elric adds one small detail regarding Kasha's presence in Wibben. The old man turns pale. Elric implies that breaking the contract would be paid in blood. Polo gets the message loud and clear, looking like he's about to pass out. The next day, the official meeting takes place at the Portmer estate. Tyria smiles brightly. And for that reason, gentlemen, the Portmer family will sign the contract with the Imperial Army. Her husband smiles softly and claps in approval. The envoy in the middle applauds to congratulate Lord Polo, even though Polo himself doesn't look particularly thrilled. Ugal slams his hands on the table, furious. Excuse me, little lady, didn't the head of the house tell you anything? Tyria smiles. Everything is exactly as the head of the house wishes. The arrogant old man cuts in. Miss, do you have any idea how ridiculous this agreement is? Tyria corrects him immediately. It's wife. The old man is stunned. What? Tyria stands up. My name is Tyria Portmer. I am the wife of the head of the house standing right beside me. For a member of your delegation to repeatedly use the wrong title is incredibly rude, Lord Edmund Ugal. Ugil is instantly silenced. Apologies, madam. He glares over at Polo, but Polo pretends to cough and looks the other way. Elric just sighs, staying out of it entirely. Under the table, he's fiddling with his hidden blade, though he won't need to use it today. Finally, the delegation leaves, seen off by the polite farewells of Mr. and Mrs. Portmer. Polo holds the contract, looking like he wants to turn back and beg for better terms, but Elric gives him a look that clearly says no. As the last carriage rolls away, Tyria and Elric stand side by side, watching them go. He turns to compliment his wife. My lady, I saw a new side of you today. I've never seen you act so tough. She smiles. I was just stating the facts. Her eyes soften as she looks right at him. And you have a pretty clever side yourself, my lord. Elric is caught off guard by her calling him out. The terms we signed were different from what I told you, but it's not a bad deal for us. He scratches his head. The Amin envoy was just too rude and arrogant. I wanted to take him down a peg. Tyria praises him for handling it perfectly as the lord of the house, then adds, well, my lord, shall we head inside? Meanwhile, at the magnificent EW mansion, a roar echoed from within, as if threatening to blow the massive doors right off their hinges. A gust of wind rushed past, carrying with it a screaming figure bursting out. It was none other than our #1 villain, tearing at his hair and screaming, how could this happen? I already said I'd buy all of Wibben's wheat at an exorbitant price and even offered distribution profits, so why? What on earth is that brat Elric so dissatisfied with? All he had to do was sit back and reap the benefits, obediently following my plan. Why must it be like this? His beautiful assistant could only murmur, Chairman, please calm down. Frustrated, White cried out, Elric, will you only be satisfied once you've completely ruined my plans? Leaning against the railing as he lamented, his foot suddenly slipped. Mr. White flailed in midair, not even having the time to let out a scream. However, right in the nick of time, an arm grabbed hold of him. Scared half to death, White dazedly entrusted his life to the person pulling him up. In the blink of an eye, he found himself safely wrapped in the arms of his beautiful assistant. They tumbled onto the floor, and fortunately, White's face was cushioned by a soft landing. He refused to get up, even as the assistant grumbled, Chairman, I told you to calm down. White, still whimpering with his face buried against her, replied, I'm sorry, darling. Eventually, they returned to the office and had some tea. Are you feeling better? The assistant asked. He replied, I'm fine now, thank you, darling. Returning to his irritable state, White said, Elric Portman, come to think of it, back when he was operating with that Karsha, I never expected him to dare ally with the Empire. He is completely outside my calculations. What on earth is going through his head? Sometimes, if you want to see through someone, you should just go and ask them directly, the assistant advised sincerely. White felt that made sense. Currently, he had no other way to confirm things anyway. White immediately opened his drawer. Then he declared boldly, if that's the case, then... Inside the drawer, an extravagantly shiny gold-plated gun was revealed. And we need a conversation starter that fits the occasion, don't we? Right upon returning, Mr. Polo arrived at Elvers Graham's mansion for an audience. The disabled man in the wheelchair asked warmly, "Welcome, Mr. Polo. It's been a long time. Did you travel all the way from Wibbon?" Polo greeted him cautiously. "Lord Graham, please take a look at this first." "What's this?" Graham took the small scroll of paper in his hand, full of curiosity. "What do we have here?" "A letter from Lord Elric Portman, sir." "Elric Portman?" An intimate letter bearing that unmistakably familiar handwriting was revealed. Graham felt a sense of comfort as he read the message from his old comrade. Suddenly, he muttered a soft curse which made Polo feel a slight pang of fear. Graham clutched his head and burst into a hearty, refreshing laugh. "When I first heard the name Elric Portman, I wondered who it was. You must have been quite shocked when you ran into Karsha, didn't you, Mr. Polo?" Polo awkwardly looked away. "Shocked? I nearly fainted." "Thank you for delivering the letter," Graham said, still unable to stop smiling from the sheer joy. Mr. Polo bid his farewell and turned to leave. Graham politely said, "Have a safe journey, Mr. Polo." Left alone, Graham mused. "That brat Elric, I wondered where he disappeared to, but it turns out he ran off to Wibbon." He muttered to himself, "It must be winter over there by now." And indeed, snow had begun to fall upon the barren territory, while the sound of hunting rifles echoed somewhere in the forest. The hunters cheered, "Got it, great shot." An elk lay motionless. It would serve as the final evaluation piece to conclude the young hunter's training. While they were figuring out how to haul the prey back, a noise from somewhere caused the most elite trainee hunter to snap his head around in alert. The two other young men, still absorbed in their prize, urged him, "Hey, Derek, what are you doing? Go bring the horses over, didn't you hear me?" Derek frowned in intense concentration and signaled for them to be quiet, at which point the group finally sensed something was wrong. The squad leader immediately reloaded his hunting rifle, instructing them to step away from the freshly hunted beast, leaving the two naive youths confused as to why they had to abandon their catch. Terrified, Derek said, "Don't you feel a chill down your spine? I think there's a beast nearby. We need to fall back now." The two innocent boys stubbornly argued back, insisting that there was no beast at all. Derek suddenly raised his rifle and aimed it straight at them, causing the two friends to turn pale with fear. "Get out of the line of fire, you idiot! There's something right behind you." Derek focused on his aim, his body tense. By the time they spotted the danger, it was already upon them. The beast, with its razor-sharp teeth and glaring, malicious eyes, lunged forward. Afterwards, they reported the incident to the lord of the estate at the Portman Castle. Tyria earnestly asked the serfs, "Oh, you poor things, is that really what happened to you?" The three young men, having preserved their lives, now sat in silence and fear. They had successfully escaped after surrendering their plump prey. Tyria comforted them. "You've been through a lot. Please have some warm tea. I will discuss this with my lord." She ordered Rhonda to prepare warm tea and some food for the hunters who had just returned from the freezing forest. Immediately, records regarding magical beasts were searched by the butler. He closed the book and reported, based on these records and their descriptions, that creature might be a blade wolf. At this, Tyria's expression visibly faltered. The butler was no less anxious upon reading the name of the ferocious beast he had just looked up. Hearing the butler confirm the situation once more, Tyria felt a genuine fear that she couldn't hide as she had when receiving the young hunters earlier. It wasn't an unfounded fear, for she remembered that the scar on Elric's neck was caused by that very same beast. Even the butler broke a sweat recalling that incident. Tyria pursed her lips, holding back her emotions as a helpless wave of terror rose within her, accompanied by a fierce anger toward the creature that had clawed her husband's neck. Finally, she gathered all her courage and issued an order. Whether the thing that appeared in the hunting grounds is a magical beast or not, doesn't matter. We cannot allow the people of this territory to face the same danger the Lord did. I will assemble a squad to eliminate it. The old man obeyed, stating he would go and gather the most experienced hunters. Tyria suddenly spoke up with a look of awkward hesitation. She gestured a signal. "Please do not let the young master know about this." The butler was surprised, but still complied. "I will keep that in mind." The next day, Elric was seen off to his carriage by his wife. He had to go out on business today, and they exchanged affectionate partings. "I will be back early." "Have a safe trip, my lord." And with that, the carriage rolled away. The butler said, "We really should have let him know. What if he gets angry about it later?" Tyria replied seriously, If we did that with his personality, he would definitely insist on going to handle it himself, and his leg is still injured after all. She suddenly frowned, recalling an incident from a long time ago. It was the time they were attacked by the demonic wolves. Back then, she was dragged away by a friend, only able to scream and cry out Elric's name. The young boy with nothing but a wooden stick stood there, fighting against the giant wolf with its violently blazing eyes. Still shaken by the painful memory, Tyria ordered, "I cannot let the Lord be put in danger. We must handle this ourselves. Have you prepared what I asked for?" With utmost care, the butler waved his hand, signaling the elite hunters to assemble. Tyria walked with determination. "Good. We will put an end to this before he returns." Only then did the butler panic. "Wait, my lady! Are you planning to go with the extermination squad?" Tyria replied, "They are facing danger because of me. I believe accompanying them is my duty as a noble." The old man was truly helpless and could only advise her, "I understand, but if you encounter any danger whatsoever, you must retreat immediately, my lady." While they were thrusting themselves into danger, her husband was having quite a leisurely time as he arrived in the bustling town of Wibben. After that, he stepped into a medical clinic. The doctor smiled joyfully. "Excellent recovery. You are completely healed." The first thing a blind man wants to do when he regains his sight is to throw away his cane, and Elric felt the same way, but the doctor advised him to keep it for a while longer just in case. The doctor kindly asked about the scar on Elric's neck. Does it leave any lingering effects? Elric bashfully praised the doctor's skill, seeming to be perfectly fine. "I struggled quite a bit back then, seeing as you were so young," the doctor recounted, "and wounds from a blade wolf often cause infection and necrosis. To top it off, your father, Lord Hoven, pleaded with all his might for me to save you." Elric was surprised. "My father did that for me?" Without doubting his own memory, the doctor continued. He was in absolute panic. It was the first time I'd ever seen Lord Hoven completely drained of color. Elric gave a sheepish smile. "I can't even dare to imagine that scene." The checkup concluded with the doctor's final instructions. The door creaked open and Elric stepped outside, but behind him the distinct gaze of someone watching him was evident, causing him to pause. "Did the treatment go well, Elric Portman?" He turned around to look at the man behind him. Elric's memory was perfectly fine. He easily recognized the familiar face from his childhood, now grown into a strong man, and called out, "Luton!" "Captain," Luton cheered, "you've returned to Wibben?" They embraced each other tightly, genuine smiles blooming on their faces as Luton continued to call Elric by the captain nickname they used as kids. Elric asked, "I heard you joined the Royal Knights, is that true?" Luton excitedly showed off the sword at his hip. "You bet. See this? A sword bestowed directly by the royal family, isn't it cool?" They decided not to stand in the street catching up. They would have a heart-to-heart at a good tavern, and the drinks would be on Portman. But before they could leave, an urgent report was delivered to Luton, who irritably retorted, "You brat, I'm on leave today." However, the young soldier seemed genuinely panicked. "There's a request for reinforcements from the Portman family," the soldier shouted. The two men stood frozen in confusion. Wasn't the head of the family standing right there? Sweating bullets, the young man reported, "It's Lady Tyria of the Portman family, sir." They said they were attacked by magical beasts. Elric went ice cold, his body stiffening. At the dangerous sight, the snow was now falling heavily. Frantic demonic wolves lunged to attack, and there was more than just one. The hunters were trying to protect the lady as she fled while fighting for their own lives. A wooden shelter cabin appeared before them. Tyria and Marie quickly rushed inside. Glowing stones were lit by the hunters standing in front of the cabin's door. They had no intention of going inside. Instead, they planned to use the magic stones to lure the beasts away from the cabin. The pack of wolves, numbering in the dozens, sprinted after the hunters. Inside the cabin, Tyria and her maid, shivering from both the cold and fear, huddled close together. Tyria felt immensely guilty for dragging Marie into danger, though the girl insisted that she had stubbornly tagged along of her own accord. The girl also assured her that the rescue team would arrive any moment, as they had fired a distress signal earlier. Tyria suddenly let out a relieved smile. She felt satisfied that she had hidden this from her husband. Otherwise, he would have been the one facing this danger all over again. Marie was moved to tears, feeling deep sympathy for her mistress who always thought of others before herself. Atop their galloping horses, Luton and Elric were burning with anxiety. Frowning in sorrow, Elric thought to himself, "Why did Lady Wibbin throw herself into such danger on her own? Am I truly that untrustworthy to her?" Luton yelled out, "Elric Portman! I know you're anxious, but you need to keep a cool head right now. No matter what happens, I will get the lady out of there. Trust me, Captain." Elric replied gratefully, "Thank you." The past still ached in Luton's heart, the memory of him helplessly dragging Tyria away, leaving Elric behind. The image of that young boy standing alone under the giant claws still filled Luton with dread. Back then, the young Luton could do nothing but run as fast as he could to call for help. But this time, he would not let Elric fight alone. Very quickly, they reached the center of the forest, where a waiting hunter called out to them, and Elric leapt off his horse, sprinting toward him. Grabbing the hunter, Elric frantically asked why Tyria wasn't there, demanding his wife's location. The man reported that the lady was sheltering in a nearby cabin and was currently safe. The hunter sobbed that his brothers were wounded and surrounded by the beasts while trying to lure them away from the lady's hideout. Feeling a slight sense of relief, Elric ordered the man to point the way, declaring that he would save them. Luton rushed forward to stop him. "You can't, Captain," Elric asked. "Can you handle this by yourself? They are blade wolves." Luton was confident, for he was no longer the child from years ago. Elric smiled proudly. Luton and the hunter quickly moved to assist those still trapped in the encirclement. Elric also hastily made his way to his wife. In the heavy snowfall, movement was many times more difficult. Elric's newly recovered legs struggled to wade through the deepening snow. His worry for Tyria and the others filled him with fear. The wooden cabin finally appeared before his eyes. Elric reached it and stood there, stunned, before the door. His voice rang out in panic, "My lady, Lady Tyria Wibbin!" His girl was sitting right there, responding in bewilderment. "My lord!" Their eyes met with such joy and surprise that all fear was forgotten. "Why are you here?" Unable to say anything else, Elric hurriedly stepped forward. He knelt down and tightly embraced his petite wife. Tyria repeated her question, "Why are you here, my lord?" It took a moment for Elric to calm down and pull away. He grasped her shoulders, still trembling slightly. "I should be the one asking you that, Tyria. How dare you do something so dangerous without even discussing it with me?" Seeing him so angry, Tyria stammered. She said, "I just didn't want you to be in danger." He sighed and let her go. "Tyria, do you see me as so useless that I am not even worth relying on?" Just as Tyria was stammering a response, his arms enveloped her completely once more. "I am so glad you are safe and sound, but please, never throw yourself into danger like this again." Tyria smiled happily. "I promise, my lord." Little Marie looked at her mistress with immense admiration. But the joy was quickly interrupted by the sound of someone approaching. Marie cheered, "The hunters have returned!" Tyria and Elric smiled in relief. He said, "Thank you all for your hard work, now." Before he could finish his words of gratitude, Elric paused. "Wait." He cried out, "Where is Luton?" "Sir Luton stayed behind alone to hold off the monsters so we could escape." The hunter bowed his head. "He kept snapping at us to run quickly. There was no other way." Elric clutched his head in helpless frustration. "Luton, you idiot!" He stood up and ordered, "Take the lady down the mountain first. I will bring Luton back." This horrified the hunters, as they were already the most battle-hardened men in the region. Elric's arm was suddenly tugged. Tyria stood there staring intently. His arm was pulled back weakly as his wife's tears streamed down her face. "I'm scared you will get hurt, my lord." "You promise me you will return safely, right?" He gently grasped her hand and slowly peeled it away. "Lady Tyria, I deeply appreciate your concern, but you have to trust me." He smiled, looking down at her. "I promise I will bring Luton back and return safely." Even though she had let go of the hem of his shirt, Tyria still hesitated. She burst into tears. "If you break your promise, this time I won't forgive you, my lord." Elric nodded. "I will keep that in mind." Back at the scene, the wolf pack was still aggressively snarling and roaring. They leapt high into the air and lunged at Luton. All on his own, he had managed to take down a few of the beasts. But he was nearing exhaustion, and one of his eyes had already been taken by their claws. He was completely surrounded by the pack of demonic wolves. Luton gave a helpless laugh. "Ha ha ha, I didn't expect there to be so many monsters." He swept his gaze over the enemies once more, calculating his own death. Likely having lost too much blood, his mind was growing dizzy. He couldn't believe this massive pack of demonic wolves was real. Dropping to his knees, Luton screamed out, "Ah! Is the Knight Luton really going to die right here in his homeland?" In a final effort, he remained determined to fight them, even though he no longer had the strength to swing his sword. The ravenous wolf bared its fangs and growled. It didn't wait any longer and pounced. Its massive jaws gaped wide open, mere inches from Luton's head. In the moment he accepted his death, Luton suddenly widened his eyes as a gunshot rang out from nowhere, and the wolf's head was instantly pierced through. He turned around in surprise, thinking that the hunting party must have returned. Before Luton stood Elric. He cried out, "Captain!" But Elric grumbled, "Anyway, you look way too pathetic for a royal knight." Luton struggled to his feet and asked about Tyria, receiving confirmation that she was safe. Elric then looked at the hunting rifle in his hand and praised it. "First time firing this thing, and it packs quite a punch, even if it's not exactly my style." Elric looked at his friend and said seriously, "Anyway, there's something I need from you. Your knight's sword. Could I borrow it for a moment?" Luton handed it to Elric immediately. "Well, if the captain asked for my life, I'd hand that over too." Luton hesitated. "But it's a real sword, it's quite heavy, unlike a wooden one." Elric didn't say another word. He took the sword, swung it twice, and marched straight toward the wolf pack. He spoke slowly. "Luton, you've always been curious about what I've been doing for the past 10 years, right? I will show you myself." The pack of wolves simultaneously charged at Elric. Swinging the sword with one hand, he unleashed blinding magic from the other. "I heard blade wolves are very sensitive to mana, aren't they?" "That reaction confirms it." The ferocious wolves lunged directly at Elric's glowing hand all at once. With a single swing of his blade, Elric pierced right through their formation, shattering the pack instantly. A wolf's head flew spinning into the air. Watching the chaotic scene unfold, Luton wondered just what had happened during the 10 years the captain was away. Looking at the man standing before him now, Luton knew for sure this was not the little captain he once knew. The remaining wolves continued to swarm Elric, only to be slaughtered one by one. Elric's eyes were icy cold, every swing of his sword dazzling with infused mana. Wolves kept pouring in from all sides, drawn by the allure of his mana. Elric watched them and assessed the situation. A powerful surge of magic radiated from his hand as murderous intent exploded across his face. An explosion erupted right where all the wolves had clustered, and Elric leapt to safety from the blast like a fired arrow. The entire pack of enemies was annihilated, leaving Luton in utter astonishment. Elric stood there and called out boldly, "How was that, Luton?" He turned back and smiled. "Did that satisfy your curiosity?" Luton finally breathed a sigh of relief and slumped to the ground. "To be completely honest, I'm even more confused now." They quickly returned to the cabin and treated their wounds. "Thank you, Luton." "What did I even do?" "You did everything, Captain." Elric laughed. "How could I have managed it all by myself? So please do me one more favor." Luton replied cheerfully, "Don't ask for a favor, just give the order." Elric said sincerely, "Take all the credit for this incident. I don't want to draw any attention." This request shocked Luton. But Elric was entirely serious, leaving Luton unable to refuse. The comrade immediately nodded, not because he wanted the glory, but because it was an order from Captain Elric. And just like that, the knight stood on the podium of glory amidst the cheers of the region's people. Every cheer made Luton flinch inside. He could only stammer his way through it all. Down below, Elric smiled up at him with complete trust. Luton would never disobey his orders, no matter what it took. And so he turned back to perfectly play the role of the hero who single-handedly took down an entire pack of demonic wolves. The roaring cheers signaled a raucous celebration in the now peaceful village. And so everything concluded smoothly, while the lord and his servants mounted their horses and returned to the estate. At the gates of the Portman Castle, Tyria was already waiting alongside a few servants. The carriage clattered back as evening slowly approached. Before long, Elric stepped down and walked toward his wife. Lady Wibbin smiled warmly and said, "Welcome back, my lord. I was starting to worry when you were delayed." Elric explained that he wanted to thank Luton and bid him farewell, which was why he returned late. His wife only now asked about his cane, but Elric demonstrated by bending and stretching his leg right in front of her to prove his recovery. Elric's health was Tyria's greatest joy, and a faint blush crept onto her cheeks. As she was busy admiring Elric, he suddenly spoke, "And, my lady, please don't ever put yourself in danger again." She obediently agreed, her gentleness enough to melt any heart. Together, they walked into the house in joyful spirits. Elric pulled the heavy doors open like a true gentleman. "Please go in first, my lady." Rhonda watched them and smiled. "It seems spring has arrived here." Marie cheered. "The atmosphere feels like summer." Tyria stepped inside, smiling as she replied, "Thank you, my lord." But just as she walked past him, she suddenly collapsed to the ground. Elric managed to catch her, but Tyria had already fainted. He cried out in panic, "My lady, Tyria!" Tyria was rushed to the clinic immediately after. The doctor frowned, informing them that the lady's condition was much worse than he had anticipated. Unfortunately, she was facing a critical stage of illness. It was similar to what Lord Hovan had once experienced. Elric shook with fear, desperately grabbing onto the doctor. He begged him to save Tyria. "Please, she means everything to me. I beg you." The doctor could only reply helplessly, "Lord Elric." He promised to do his absolute best. The carriage carrying him and his patient drove away. Elric distractedly cried out, "My lady!" Then he slumped to the ground, his entire body devoid of strength, as the servants rushed over crying out in worry. Rhonda consoled him. "Young master, you must stay calm, especially at a time like this." And so, dinner was served, with only Elric sitting there today. The food tasted like ash without Tyria. Tyria's usual clear voice rang in his ears. "My lord, is the food not to your liking?" Her adorable, chubby face filled Elric's mind at this moment. Elric sighed. He couldn't manage to eat a single bite. He felt lost in a dream, muttering, "Could you talk to me just a little more?" The meal was left entirely untouched as he stood up and walked away. Rhonda and Marie watched worriedly as their master left without eating a thing after such an exhausting day. Rhonda ran after Elric, calling out, "My lord!" Marie sadly cleared the dishes from the table. Normally, he clears his plate entirely. Rhonda grimaced and said, "Young master, you haven't eaten anything." Elric replied, "I'm sorry, Rhonda, I just don't feel hungry at all." Rhonda suggested, "There is a garden that Lady Tyria visits every day. Would you like to take a walk there for a bit?" The garden soon came into view, blooming with vibrant blue roses. Elric gazed blankly at his wife's flowers, as Rhonda told him they had been planted long before his return. They could survive even the harsh winters if well cared for and sustained with the right amount of mana. The magic techniques used were also quite methodical. Rhonda reminisced, "You used to love plants back in the day, didn't you?" He murmured, "It's just a faded memory now." In Elric's mind, there was no fragrant scent of flowers. The Elric of today was no longer the Elric of the past. The metallic stench of the battlefield and the tattered ruins clung to him as if trying to drag him down to hell with them. Rhonda crouched down near the flower bushes and continued, "Lady Tyria seems to have many memories with these plants. It's lovely to see. Rumor has it that when she was young, she dreamed of becoming a great military doctor." Elric felt curious. A noble young lady dreaming of becoming a military doctor? Suddenly, an image of Tyria flashed before Elric's eyes. His memories suddenly burst open. Elric clutched his head in apparent distress, causing Rhonda to ask in concern, but he replied that it was just a small matter he had almost forgotten. Rhonda noted that it was quite cold outside and it would be best for them to go in, an idea Elric agreed with. Night soon enveloped the Portman castle. The busy butler looked up and asked, "My lord, what brings you here?" Elric countered, "Aldia, why are you in Tyria's office?" The poor old man sighed about all the paperwork that needed processing. Elric was surprised. "You know how to sort through all this?" Aldio sighed. "I did serve under the former lord for half my life, after all." Elric grew irritable. "Then you should have been helping her regularly. Just look at all this work, no wonder she collapsed from exhaustion." Aldio grumbled, "Pardon my bluntness, but I was strictly following Lady Tyria's instructions." Elric asked if he could help with anything, but Aldio refused. He had to step out and ask Rhonda to brew some tea for the butler, which Aldio appreciated far more than having the young master meddle with his paperwork. Tea was brought by little Marie for the lord as well. She carefully knocked on the door. "I have prepared the tea, my lord." Elric nodded. "Come in." Marie silently observed the lord's depressed demeanor. He sat there in a daze, completely ignoring the servant. Seeing the desolate atmosphere in the castle right now, Marie's eyes welled with tears. She quietly poured tea for him. Marie introduced it. "This is the rose tea that the lady loves so much." Elric gave a soft "oh" at learning something new about his wife. "Is that so?" Little Marie comforted him. "Cheer up, my lord, the lady will be fine." Elric felt embarrassed. "Ah, goodness, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to make you worry." The girl respectfully bowed her head. "Oh, it's nothing. I was just a bit worried because you looked so down." After that, Marie excused herself and quickly vanished. Elric sat there, not even bothering to taste the tea. He muttered, "My lady, I please return to me safely." Under that same sky, at the clinic, the moon shone just as clear and bright. The fever left Tyria delirious, and the female doctor grew deeply worried about the young woman's condition. Tyria wearily opened her eyes, thinking to herself, "I can't. If I stay like this, he'll be so worried." She closed her eyes, letting a helpless tear fall. The doctor grew even more anxious, asking, "My lady, are you all right?" But Tyria then drifted off into another bout of delirium, much to the doctor's panic. Eventually, the acute phase of the illness passed, and the carriage carrying the lady returned on a brightly sunlit morning. A pair of dainty feet stepped down from the carriage. Tyria spoke softly, "I'm home. Did anything happen while I was away?" Rhonda and Marie joyfully welcomed their lady back in their own ways. Little Marie threw herself into Tyria's arms and cried, "Lady Tyria, you have no idea how worried I was." Tyria comforted her. "I'm all right now, Marie." Rhonda bowed solemnly. "I am so glad to see you recovered, my lady. I will serve you with my utmost devotion from now on." Tyria thanked the longtime servant of Wibben for her dedication. Tyria eagerly thought of Elric, wondering if he was okay. Elric burst out of the main doors, shouting, "What? Tyria is back? Is she okay?" His wife smiled at him with profound affection. Elric stared blankly at his petite wife, overwhelmed with immense tenderness. He stood stunned for a long time, endlessly stammering her name. Then he cried out, "My lady!" Emotions exploded at that exact moment as Elric rushed toward the light he had been longing for. Without giving her a chance to feel flustered, he scooped her into a tight, urgent embrace. Tears streamed down the face of a man who had grown callous on the battlefield for a full decade. "Forgive me, my lady, but please just let me hold you like this for a moment." Another day passed over Wibben, with stars twinkling in the night sky. Thrilled to be back home, Tyria hugged her pillow and bounced around in pure joy over her husband's affection. That joy left Tyria ecstatic, unable to stop calling out his name. The passionate feeling of his tight embrace kept her face flushed the entire time. With a maiden's heart leaping out of her chest, Tyria rolled around on her bed in pure delight. She was so engrossed in her happiness that she didn't even hear the knock on the door. And so Marie brought the tea in, completely unnoticed by Tyria until the girl's bright voice rang out. This silly display left Tyria utterly embarrassed, and Marie quite surprised. Very quickly, Tyria composed herself and regained her dignified, proper demeanor. The young maid was simply beaming to see their lady so healthy again. While serving the tea, Marie chatted with the lady. She was very surprised to learn that the lord and lady had known each other since childhood, which Tyria confirmed, though she felt regretful that Elric didn't remember any of it. Marie eagerly asked about the memory of how they first met. Holding the teacup in her hands, Tyria blushed. He was a very strong and brave person. We had only just met for the first time, and he already proposed to me. Marie's jaw dropped. "Wow, the Lord really said that to you, my lady?" Tyria replied with a hint of regret. "It's a pity he rushed off before I could even mumble a word in response." She continued, "It wasn't until much later that we met again during the autumn of that year, right here at the Portman estate." Memories flooded Tyria's mind of that year when her father and Lord Hoven arranged to meet. Right before that, at the Portman house itself, she had been beaten by her mother. The whip cracked harshly while Tyria endured it in silence, as if it were a habit. The mother stared coldly at her daughter without an ounce of pity. The servants begged her to stop, saying this was the Portman household and someone might see. But Tyria's mother snarled, "Shut your mouth." She said, "Tyria Wibben, I will say this one more time. This marriage to the Portman family will determine the fate of the Wibben family. The Portman family is the most perfect foundation for the rest of your life. Do you understand? If you dare to complain about this even once more, don't even think about eating dinner for a month." And with that, the mother left, slamming the door behind her. Tyria's nanny told her to wait there while she went to find some medicine for her. The little girl stood there all alone in the vast and unfamiliar castle. Little Tyria stood there like a solitary shadow. She sobbed just like any other child would. Why do I have to marry a guy whose face I haven't even seen? Suddenly, a book fell to the floor with a thud from out of nowhere, making Tyria jump. Then Elric crawled out clumsily, looking at her in embarrassment. He raised his hand in greeting. "Hi, we meet again." "Why are you here?" Tyria asked, to which Elric replied, "I live here. More importantly, you're a lot more foul-mouthed than you look, aren't you?" He probed, "By the way, are you getting married to someone?" Tyria didn't even know. She only knew she had to do it for her family. Elric suddenly offered to help. With a bold confidence, he beckoned her to follow him, promising to help her escape the wedding she didn't want. Tyria was instantly swayed, and that story remained etched in Tyria's memory to this day. Marie was currently still marveling at such a romantic beginning for the lord and lady. However, Tyria sighed and said, "But do you know where he took me?" "Where?" Marie asked. Tyria was led to the forest where Elric's friends gathered, and the beautiful girl left the whole group in awe. Elric bragged excitedly. "See? Did I lie?" His friend asked, "So this is the girl who rejected the captain's proposal?" Elric immediately argued back. "Rejected? Who's spreading such nonsense? I just haven't gotten an answer yet." But another friend remained unconvinced. "Hey, Captain, my brother clearly told me you got dumped." Elric got irritated and tried to shut the boy up, while Tyria was laughing so hard her mouth hung open at the scene. Elric suddenly said, "That was just a trick to recruit a beautiful military doctor for our gang. Have you ever seen a military doctor this pretty?" These words immediately sent a shock through little Tyria. Of course, none of them had ever seen someone so beautiful. And so, the miniature army set off to patrol their territory. Tyria hesitantly trailed behind Elric. Captain Elric said coolly, "According to military law, soldiers are protected until they are discharged. As long as you are a military doctor, you won't have to participate in any forced marriages." Tyria was even more astonished when Elric haltingly said, "So if I become a royal knight, could I get a yes from you?" This detail was so romantic that Marie shrieked, "So he never had any intention of giving up?" Tyria laughed shyly. "Yes, that's right. His friends had come back at that moment, so I couldn't give a direct answer." That day in Tyria's memory passed by wonderfully, with the children playing and cheering. They pointed at a squirrel foolishly gnawing on a chestnut. "This tiny squirrel monster is going to attack our village. Be careful." The poor squirrel almost choked upon hearing that. It scrambled away to escape the mischievous kids. Thinking back to those beautiful moments, the present Tyria couldn't help but laugh out loud. Back then, Elric pointed ahead. "Hey, military doctor, that's our base right there." Tyria looked at the small house in complete surprise. Elric was proud of their base, declaring that he would build a spacious training ground when he grew up and became a royal knight. They all dragged each other inside. Suddenly, Tyria received a small pouch from Elric's hand. She was utterly surprised, but still reached out with both hands to take it. "What's this?" Tyria asked. He pointed at the little pouch. "A military doctor needs to know a lot of herbs, right? Try planting these and see how it goes." Marie guessed. "Does that mean you planted all those seeds yourself?" Tyria smiled proudly. "Yes, all the flowers in the garden. They were all given to me by the Lord on that very day." Marie cheered. "Oh my goodness, the Lord is so romantic." Just then, a knock sounded at the door. It was Rhonda asking if Marie was in there. Little Marie was immediately scolded. "I told you to bring her tea. What on earth are you doing in there?" Tyria laughed happily. "Rhonda, it's my fault. I kept her here to chat for a bit." But Rhonda didn't let her off either. "Even you are going overboard, my lady? The doctor said you needed plenty of rest. Go to sleep immediately." Tyria meekly obeyed. The young mistress got into bed and pulled up her blanket obediently. Only then did Rhonda gracefully bow and step outside. That night, Tyria felt truly at peace. Sleep came to her gently in the home she had grown so familiar with. The sweet memories of the past replayed themselves in Tyria's dreams. The playful children lay scattered about, asleep on the wooden floor. Little Tyria lay beside Elric, watching him sleep soundly. She gently brushed her fingers through his silky black hair and whispered, "Thank you for what you did today." At that moment, Tyria made the biggest decision of her life, Elric Portman. "I'll become your bride." And so, their very first kiss landed on the cheek of a boy who knew absolutely nothing about it. The memory slowly faded away beneath the sunlight that bathed the fields of Wibbon. Tyria awoke, still lingering in that warm, peaceful feeling. Suddenly, an unfamiliar knock sounded at the door. Hesitantly, she stepped outside. Tyria slowly reached for the doorknob, her heart carrying a trace of anticipation. But the moment she saw her husband standing before her, she gasped softly in surprise. Elric greeted her with a bright smile. "Well, this is quite a surprise." "Good morning, Tyria." He asked, "If you don't mind, would you join me for some morning tea?" She replied shyly, "I'd love to, but I haven't even gotten dressed yet. Would you wait just a little while for me?" Elric smiled, his own face turning red as he finally noticed the thin nightgown his wife was wearing. "Then I'll leave Lady Tyria to get changed first." Embarrassed, she stopped him before he could leave. "My lord, there's something I'd like to ask." Elric looked at her attentively. "Yes, I'm listening." "From now on, could you call me wife instead of that?" Tyria asked earnestly, her eyes filled with hope. Elric froze for a moment, scratching the back of his head. In that case, I'll wait outside, my wife." Her face lit up with joy. "Yes, my husband." Before long, they arrived in the sitting room, where freshly brewed hot tea had already been served. Elric spoke awkwardly. "Lady, no, wife. Do you read the newspapers often?" Holding a newspaper in her hands, she answered, "Of course. The Portman family's main source of income comes from exporting wheat overseas, so I always keep up with the latest news." She read a passage aloud. "It says here that Cheber has also surrendered to the Western Empire." The news immediately caught Elric's attention. "Wasn't Cheber the country where I was stationed back when I worked as a mercenary?" he muttered thoughtfully. "That's rather surprising." Unable to contain his curiosity, he leaned in beside her. "Wife, let's read it together." The headline made him deeply uneasy. He had believed that Nation would be able to hold out much longer, yet in the end, they had still been defeated. However, the Portman couple soon realized that the atmosphere between the two of them was far more intense. They were standing close enough to feel each other's every breath. Flustered, Elric quickly pulled away and apologized for his impropriety. Tyria, on the other hand, thought it was perfectly natural. Even so, neither of them could hide the blush spreading across their faces. Elric's gaze drifted to her cherry-red lips, ripe like the first cherries of the season. He simply couldn't look away. His heart was pounding as fast as a horse at full gallop. They turned to face each other, finally confronting the feelings in their hearts. Tyria smiled softly, covering her mouth with one hand. She puckered her lips ever so slightly, waiting for a romantic kiss. Naturally, Elric wasn't oblivious. He slowly reached up to caress her face, leaning closer to her delicate features. But at that crucial moment, Marie once again became the ultimate mood killer. She burst into the room like an arrow, shouting, "My lady! The invitation to this year's royal banquet has arrived." Marie suddenly froze as she sensed the strangely awkward atmosphere in the room. Huh? The little girl had no idea she'd just interrupted what could have been the most classic romantic moment imaginable.